DanielS here. Correctivity for homeostasis and thereby sovereignty and autonomy for European peoples, genus, and species. I'm going to go live at least for a few minutes until Mirth Barron and Snorkelblog, arrive. I think we want to talk offline a few minutes, although maybe not, because that was Per's request, and he's not even going to be here today, so we might just go ahead and start talking online. What the heck? I was thinking with my talk about pro-choice yesterday, Tom Metzger made a great argument against these right wingers, the kind who will say that they're rooting for Putin. They're the same kind that would be against abortion and particularly incensed by late-term abortion. Well, what are they doing? TT would say, in being advocates of these wars, but creating late-term abortions of these young men, effectively. Goddamn right-wingers. There's got to be an end to this nonsense. Okay, Mirth, where are you? I thought you said that this was an okay time for you. Oh, I suppose he'll be here. Maybe he did, but maybe he overslept like I did. Not once, not twice, but 3 times yesterday. Missed my official starting point because I nodded off. Never had that happen before. It was so weird. I'm sure that I missed 1 or 2 shows because I overslept, or the starting time that I had set. But not twice, and certainly not 3 times like I did yesterday. That was weird. That's what I get for listening to Praise of Folly. No, actually, these are intelligent guys. I just don't agree with them. Christians and Keith Preston's an anarchist. No thanks. I mean, you would think any normal person would have enough of the concept of anarchy, with America being what it is. It's basically an anarchy of sorts, at least for any sort of responsible top-down organization. It's a bunch of anarchists from above making a mess for everybody below. I never could relate to anarchist ideology, and there's never been one. Somebody's here. Is that you, Mirth? I'll put the link in. Rooting for Putin's late-term abortions. That's the... Who's that lady that's talking with Lauren Southern and a few of these other alt-light ethos. They're saying that they have a casting couch. Yeah, right. Been subject to the casting couch of the dissident right. I don't think so. That's more the speed of your alt-light kosher brethren. Chrissy Mayer. Who's the one? Selling T-shirts rooting for Putin. We need her help, honey. I feel like your joke's on the moon. She's a comedian.
Jest nowy.
So we're going to be talking today with Mirth Barron and Snorkelblog. And we'll be working on the project of getting some of these more popular podcasts and websites, hopefully, to help promote the DNA Nations concept. Brittany Venti was another one. So we had Brittany Venti, Chrissy Mayer, and Lauren Southern. Sure, I trust you, honeys. Take care of our interests. Rooting for Putin. Per Norden said he was wasn't going to be able to make it this weekend. Hopefully next. That's one thing I feel pretty good about is that this platform has solid moral grounds, so that not just not only our normal people can feel free to contribute, but we can even talk to adversaries to the extent that we might wish to put up with them, and people of other kinds. Okay, like I said, I'm going to. I'm basically going live because I want to send a clear signal to these guys that I'm here and have them participate and let me know if they want to just go ahead and talk live or if they want to speak offline, in which case I'll shut the stream down and we'll come live a little later in a half hour or so. No harm in being alive for now, though. Is the time The time is 10 o'clock in London, isn't it? Or is it, am I not understanding the time difference at this point? Current time in London. What? 10 o'clock, yeah. Mirth said he'd be ready. I'm no one to criticize with my thing yesterday. Was it narcolepsy? I was falling asleep before my schedule. That's a sure way to ruin my audience's trust. Hey, yeah, I'll be there. 11 o'clock on the dot. Doesn't show up. Oh, sorry. I'll be there. 12:30 on the dot. Again, no. Oh, sorry. I'll be sure to be there. 2 o'clock. Nope. And promptly 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. I'm good and rested now. Let's talk. Again, it was disappointing to me because there were a few people there who were interested in a live discussion, and I wasn't there. So it's terrible. Oh well. Especially wanted Stephen St. James to take note, because the discussion was about the fact that yes, I've been critical of dissident right figures, and he sort of amplified that into a straw man that I don't like anybody or can't like anybody, or I'm just disliking people just because, and that I'm not being critical for good reasons, and then I don't recognize, on the other hand, the good work that many of these people are doing by and large. I was very impressed by a recent few of Lana Locktuff's discussions over at Red Eye Spit Shoot. Recommend them. And also noted that they're like Richard Hook. There's several people. I don't always remember. There's so many. They were doing generally good work. One guy who's pretty good is the one from Western Spring. What's his name? Max Mousson. He can be pretty good. Unfortunately, though, there's something wrong when he's comfy with the folks at Radio Albion. So if some people on the lunatic fringe over there. What's his name? Radio Albion. Well, they have my old kind of colleague at VOR. What's his name? Father Raphael Johnson is out to lunch. Intelligent, but like really stacking up his concern behind Russia and Putin, which is surprising because at one time his forte was Ukraine per se. They've got Sven Longchance, okay, which is, it's another one of these, quote, National Socialists, which is basically just a euphemism for Nazi. I hate that term, National Socialist. It makes these people sound so benign, and they're not. Vihu sound is good. Oh, glad to hear it, Vihu. I think Vihu is the Portuguese guy who was giving me the horrible news that Lisbon is being inundated by Africans, and I sort of remained in my discussion about pro-choice at the time, and that was really should have merited a quick shift of course to that tragedy. Discussion of that. I wouldn't mind him coming on to talk about that, because that's a clear case of why we need to get this DNA Nations project underway, because clearly our political elites are not doing what we need them to do in order to protect our peoples, our most precious resource, which is our ethnic genetic interests. DNA Nations, of course, would be a concept implemented by unionization and coalition building, which is of the depth grammar of the left, but it's a left in our interests, in our ethno-national interests, whereas all good social organizing and maintaining principles have been taken by our adversaries and weaponized against us. That's the case of Marxism, of course, wherein the union is of the Workers' International, quote, against the nation state, which is supposed to wither away in the end, right? And then more recently, the Frankfurt School, the cultural Marxists, are unionizations of sorts of people of color and what do you call them? Non-standard types, let's say, and against European boundaries and borders, and also, a union of any kind of, even our own people who are against us for some reason, as in the case of some kinds of feminists, I suppose, in coalition. And these distorted activist groups are represented as the left, and proposed as such by markedly, notably, Paul Gottfried, for just a salient example. Not saying that he's the Wizard of Oz pulling the strings behind all this, but he provides a clear example of that motivation and that perspective, that wish for damage control, to turn the left into the enemy and have our people in the same old reactionary, rigid, easy to manipulate, easy to maneuver, easy to infiltrate right-wing reaction, and chasing these red capes of the left, and with it the underlying concepts that we need in order to defend our people and to maintain our borders and boundaries, our correctivity, our agency. Now, I had a real good talk with Mirth Barron yesterday. I was considerably more fluid than I was in the podcast before. I just sort of went on at a bad time of day in frame of mind for myself. I listened to it again, though, my discussion of the Buffalo incident and so on, and reactions to it. And it wasn't bad. My speech patterns dragged a bit, but they got to the significant points that I needed to make. Sunday. Now, Snorkelblog did say that it was going to be a bit late. It did say it might be an hour late, so which would, in relation to the scheduled beginning, would mean they should be here in 35 minutes or so. I don't know what Mirth Barron's excuse is. But I don't mind if he's overslept. He'll be here and well rested. He has got to watch A Letter to Brezhnev. Anybody should. That's a terrific movie. Hey, I'm not endorsing every little political aspect and thing about the movie. There's a part of the movie which was pointed out to me as, you should be noting that this isn't good. Where these two Scouser girls are these two sort of older Cyprian guys are trying to hit on them in a bar, and it's oh yeah, we'll dance with you, and they pickpocket the guy's wallet, and that's not good to promote as a funny thing, but it's a movie, and understood in that context of these girls being well, maybe that's more than a little bit naughty, but still, really good movie. Letter to Brezhnev. I don't know if it's 1984, 5, or 6, somewhere in there, while the Cold War was still in full swing. Well, Brezhnev was still in charge of the Soviet Union. Great movie. And Mirth Barron's talking about his appreciation of Scouse culture and Scouse accents. Well, that's where that movie's at. Scouse Central. And also in the realm of Irish people, Broken Vows, this made for TV or made for home box movie from around the same time, 86, 87. Tommy Lee Jones plays a priest who is called to give the final rites to a dying artist guy who's for some reason supposed to be very special. It's one of the weak points. The actor is not very compelling as this amazingly special person that he's supposed to be. But anyway, he's just a prop. It doesn't really matter. This is drama. And turns out that this dying artist was a boyfriend of Annette O'Toole. And there's these mysteries involved with them. But anyway, so what happens is as Tommy Lee Jones and Annette O'Toole are investigating the death, she winds up seducing him. And the scripting and her acting of the part is so cool. She is so cute. She's so fine. It just tickles me. And she seduces the priest. But this whole, it's not. There is some. It's based on a book which has some actually deep concerns. They draw a parallel between how between the police and the priesthood, how they are an institution which the people in the street respect, are glad that they're there when they need them, but they don't really like them. They don't relate to them as human beings, and then they play that off against Annette O'Toole's character, who is in her recourse to psychology. Psychology released to the church, by contrast. And there's reflections on death, and it's so there's some deeper stuff going on, even though it's clearly a made-for-TV movie. The book must have something to it. Didn't, of course, haven't read it. What I didn't like about it, well, Tommy Lee Jones is a liberal. I'm not endorsing his politics, for sure. I'm sure another tool as well. They're still heavily promoting, and not just anyway, in a really kind of self-righteous, nasty way. That Tommy Lee Jones character, saying to the Monsignor that his relationship to God was between him and God and nobody else. And he's very angry about it, or righteous about it. And, there was a mean-spirited individualism being promoted that, of course, people concerned for our kind, that's about the last thing we need. And at the time, I guess in the 1980s, it was even then it was old, but I guess the liberals hadn't yet felt that they exhausted themselves. But now, like Mirth Barron was saying yesterday, it's like they're only more flagrant than ever. And this is one of the things that struck me over the course of my lifetime that I would not expect, and something that's gone on for years. It's like you think, I mean, in the early 70s, even probably in the 60s. Yeah, in the 60s. You think things couldn't possibly get any worse. And they just always do. These people, they hate us. Do you want to see a woman who's really someone who provides an example of how much we are hated just for being who we are? Doesn't matter if this woman knows anything about us as particular ethnic groups, as individuals. Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! She is those mean-spirited, bigoted, prejudice against white people, disgusting person. And her program is just, she has every reason to be ashamed, but she just wouldn't be. What she is, I find her to be just evil. She's disgusting in her dishonesty. I mean, anything where white people are just not hating themselves, she's going to call that white supremacist. I mean, really, this woman, she doesn't have it. She doesn't have it backwards. She makes it backwards. she is purporting really to continue to make enslave European peoples even more so than they have been in this neo-feudalism in which blacks are put into authoritative position over us, and we are to serve them. And of course, her kind, it goes without speaking. But she's absolutely disgusting, and why the kind of person who provides an example of how I look forward to setting forth a course of autonomy for our people, so that we don't have to put up with someone like Amy Goodman. Mike Enoch was saying, and well, he would know. Though people deny it, it still seems that he is a tribesman. He certainly is familiar with the folks over there, and very New Yorkish is Mike Enoch Pinovich. I recall him saying that he knows these things, that Amy Goodman is related to the Goodman of the Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman trio that were murdered in the famous Mississippi burning incident. As 3 Northerners went down to interrogate the Southerners over the death of Emmett Till. Which we hear about to no end, right? This kid who was, 14 years old, 13 years old, going in and dry humping some white guy's wife in the store. Whose father was a black GI in Italy and was hanged for raping an Italian woman. So was apparently on the course to be some sort of sexual predator himself. Amy Goodman operates against the best interest of the Americans, well, certainly against white Americans. She's a terrible, terrible person. I mean, it's shocking. It's jaw-dropping to watch her take on things. What did she say? That there's a scourge, a epidemic of white supremacist violence. The hell is she talking about? There's been a handful of incidents over the course of 5 years and she calls them white supremacist. I think only this one kid even called himself that. And compare that to the Black Lives Violence matter, just the day-to-day violence coming from the homies, and which she'll never say anything about. Typical. And when you do something that Tucker Carlson won't do, and you take a relativist perspective, like, yeah, there is a relation here to the whites, and a reason why they're upset. I think it makes it, it should be understandable to you that it's not coming from a sense of superiority. It's coming from a reaction to egregious exploitation. Like I said, not a word about the guy, the black guy who killed the police down in Texas. You know, the one in Wisconsin who deliberately ran over white people. What has Amy Goodman said about that? Or the subway, this guy recently in the New York City subway who tried to kill, explicitly by his own words, was trying to kill white people. I don't think he succeeded, but he shot a few and injured them anyway. I mean, well, the examples are limitless. And, you know, for the fact that these right wingers are creating a sense of despair and a lack and not showing the way to agency and a better course of action for a Dylan Roof. That's what you have. But this is the right wing. And this is a distinction that an important distinction that's not being made. There's this lady, maybe later I'll play a clip of her, white lady who criticizes the evangelicals for their quote racism. And she said, this is what white people, white people are so white men are so prone to this prejudice, and they're imbuing the churches with this and fostering all this hate. How disgusting that she would just say, this is what white men do. All that's required. I mean, have the decency to make some sort of distinction that not all white men are this way. She won't do it, right? But all that's really required, the key difference is right-wingers, liberals, neoliberals. These are the kinds who are short on accountability and adopting these unstable quests for warrant. House of Commons says, I have traveled to many countries and no other ethnic group would allow such transgressions against them in their homelands. Only whites must kneel. Well, yeah, that's probably true. But House of Commons, what one needs to understand with that truth is that our people have been bound up by our very moral order in the deepest sense, unbeknownst by antagonists. This is, a large part of, maybe the more than 90% of the reason for our obsequiousness, for our self-loathing, our original sin, our quest for innocence and to be free of guilt by service of outgroups. So this kind of, quote, pathological altruism has its source in its major source in Christianity, which is a trick, a kosher trick, a red caping of a moral order, a false opposition. Furthermore, the kosher folks, their biology has evolved crypsis, so that many of us grow up seeing the kosher folks as just another variant of ours, of our people, when in fact They're very different and have extremely conflicting interests, which are, of course, hidden from us and fairly cleverly deployed against us. So that's why we, quote, put up with it, because they've moved into these power niches. So even where our people are aware of it, there's not a lot that they can do with it. And most of our people are not. Even the people who purport to be, have a good day, duty calls. Okay, House of Commons, good to see you there. Even our people who have a good degree of expertise on the kosher question are still falling into its framework, which basically winds up serving their interests. Really? Oh, the left is the problem. Yeah, well, you don't want any people to organize against the elite, do you? Now that the kosher folks are in control of just about everything, or have disproportionate control. Sorry, Colin Liddell. I know you don't want to agree because you know where your bread is buttered, but it's the case. You know, whether it's media, religion, clearly, academia, money, politics, law and courts, international business. Other NGOs, including the NGO of organized crime and unions. And indeed, because they're only a small population, they rely upon the foibles of white folks who are ready to go right wing or liberal. Right wingers tend to take the payoff with the pretext of objectivism. That's just the way it is. I'm just wonderful, and that's why the YKW agrees my palm. The liberals take the licentiousness. Oh, I'm just so beautiful, therefore I can conduct myself like a hostile sexual pig. The neoliberals, it's just a different shading on the right wingers. The difference, but there would be, they wouldn't be pretending to be culturally conservative. They would be corporatists, for example, who would go along with all this, like, you know, Black Lives Matter and Rainbow Coalition stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, the boomer right wingers and this characterology that's been developed by something like a Madison Avenue firm and put out there. Oh, the left does this, and oh, the left does that. And I continue to hear this. People just go right along with it. The left doesn't deal with nature. The left doesn't deal with reality. The left doesn't deal with facts. The left doesn't deal with reality. Some of these people, Stephen St. James was criticizing me again for the charge that I don't like anybody. What I want to like them. I do like a lot of stuff that they're saying, but then they're in that framework, which stealthily works against our most vital interests, our most fundamental concerns. Which, of course, is organizing who we are and the means to defense. A unionization and coalition building. That's the death grammar of the left. Not equality. Not anti-hierarchy. Unionization and coalition building, social advocacy, and organization, which puts things like compassion, decency, social accountability on our side. We're not the ones who are the cold steel rail of brute reality, like the right wingers like to make of themselves. We are the ones who are intelligent, socially responsible, organized, managing our praxeology. Not animals. Beholden to mere nature as a natural fallacy, or some Fruit Loop nutcase religious fanatic, on the other hand, who sees herself beyond nature altogether and beyond social concern. Not in the case of Christianity, not even for our children. Our reward is in the hereafter with Jesus. It's supposed to be. Mirth Barron, what happened to you? Snorkelblog, where are you? I think it'll be there. It may take an hour or two. They'll come around. I'm sure. I know that what I'm saying bears a little more attention relative to the kind of attention that someone like Lauren Southern is getting. Something's not right about. It should be clear to you that something's not right about the right and the dissident right and the alt-light and these people and these people think that Paul Gottfried is just gravy, whether it's academic agent or what's his name? 99 Iron Duke. I want to like Iron Duke. I'd like to, but he's a military guy who is used to having, apparently likes to have, his set orders. So he's not accustomed to bushwhacking the very radical concerns, which is where we're really at if you care about our people. He must take orders and click his heels. Oh, Paul Gottfried said, must be true. Like I said, I'm not trying to be mean. That's not the purpose. I want to, I always start out like, yeah, listening to these people, and they have my concerns. May I have the link for the private stream, or how does it work? Many thanks. I'm live now, Nathan. I went live. If you don't mind coming on live for a second, and if you do, we'll just talk for a second and go off. There's the link, Nathan. Come on and just say hi for a second, and then if you don't want to talk live, we'll go off. But I don't see why not. Amy Goodman is a spinster, and an evil spinster too. It's jaw-dropping, the hatred that she has for white people. And like I said, these people, it's not that there's not a lot of contemptible white people, but they don't have the decency. They're so bigoted. This is, they would call themselves racist. They should be called racist. They don't make any distinctions, and they put everything in the worst possible terms. Everybody who's familiar with WN knows that over and over, even the right wingers are saying, "Look, very few. There's very few exceptions. Someone stupid as Tom White, they'll say that he's a supremacist, but almost none of them will say that they want to lord themselves over others, that they see themselves better in all ways. Most of them have the same motive as I do, and want people to be free and unencumbered and unexploited. And yet she'll continue to call white people supremacists. It's really this platform's explicitly anti-supremacist, but they've been doing that for years. Oh, you're white. You're defending your people. Oh, you're a supremacist. That's been going on for absolute decades. I sent Snorkelblog the link. I don't know if he's going to come on live or not. Snorkelblog can be a tremendous asset in basically saving our people and by proxy saving the world, along with Mirth and Per. They're smart enough to do it, to get this thing going, to encourage people like Lana over at Red Eyes or Kevin McDonald to say, hey, look, What's the problem? Come and help us get this project going. It's in perfect sync with what you should want to do, don't you see? And maybe they'll listen to them because I haven't been like, part of me, I've been laboring under the abuse of well, neo-Nazis and Christians and the kosher folks and the scientific and conspiracy nuts, liberals who just, and also liberals who just don't care. People like Conops or Claire Caw. Or ego case, like over there at Majority Rights. Never mind. Categorical imperative. I wonder who that is. House of Commons. Nathan, I responded. I don't know what the thing is. I sent you the link. Oh, I'm not going to worry that this is like this is a homey, like fireside kind of thing. Who's White Advocate? Hello?
Hi.
Oh, Claire.
How are you?
Well, I was okay until you came on. You're not a white advocate. You're not a white.
Of course I am. I'm trying to help you guys.
Probably said that we'll be on in a second. Claire, you're not trying to help us.
Yes,
don't
I am. I'm
pretend.
just saying this is the only way, and I can't give you all these years to find a better way, and you still can't.
Sorry, that's enough of that. Sorry, Claire. Hello, Snorkel's here. Hello, gentlemen. I am on now or will be on in a second. Good. You have the link, Snorkel, I'll put it in again. Claire, you have a very endearing voice. I wanted to believe that you were operating in goodwill, but that didn't bear out. Sorry. It's not my fault. It's your fault. You have a good veneer. You have a beautiful voice. Hi, Snorkel. Welcome.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you very much for being patient.
No problem. You said that you might be only available an hour later, so it's no big surprise.
How have things been going on your end in the last month or so?
I think better and better. Really. Yeah, the platform's solidifying, and with the input of guys like yourself and Mirth and Per Norden, I believe that we can really get something significant underway. Okay, and how things been for you?
Well, firstly, I'm glad to hear that on your end you feel that things are solidifying. On my end, so yeah, the reason I'm late, I was supposed to do something and then that got canceled because my wife, by the way, we're expecting a boy in 3 months.
Excellent.
Well, thank you very much. And well, we had to go just to make sure that everything was okay today. And so we're a little bit late because of that, but
it seems funny to me to hear an apology for something like that.
Oh.
It's like Per not being able to make it this weekend. And first, my initial reaction is like, Per, can't you set aside a half hour? And then I think to myself, well, maybe he's doing something terrible, like taking his family to enjoy the beautiful countryside of Sweden for the weekend and camping out or something. Really terrible. He'll be around next week or something.
Indeed, something properly spiritually uplifting. And there's a lot of beautiful countryside in Sweden that you can just walk through, basically just about anywhere, as long as you have permission from the owners. Yeah, it's incredible. You can actually camp if you want.
Great.
Just about anywhere. Just about anywhere.
Just have to respect the owners. That's
Exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
And they have that understanding that it.
Yeah, it's actually quite an ancient law. Actually, well, I shouldn't say ancient, but it's an old law. It's an old law that people respect, and I can't remember the name of it again. I've forgotten my Swedish, but that's how it is,
And I would guess that camping is not something that's going to be popular among Muslims and Africans.
No, that's one of the really great things. Is even when I was back there in 2011, we'd go walking through the forest, and you would see, if you went to the nearest town, Vitlanda, you would see plenty of very obvious non-Swedes. But as soon as you stepped out into the forest, unless it was on a road to a kebab shop, it would all be Swedes. Yeah. And I say that, and it sounds like a joke, but that's because one of the roads.
No, it's a reality. It's not a joke.
Well, but there's actually one of the back ways to a kebab shop that was local to us. Actually went through the forest, and so every once in a while, like in a couple of years, you'd see some guy who was obviously not Swedish, actually in the forest, and it was a strange sight.
Just like I'm taking a sip of water.
Yeah. Yeah, I was taking a sip of coffee.
I'm a coffee man. I love it.
I didn't used to be a coffee man. My wife, well, she's my girlfriend. I like to call her my ex-girlfriend. She is. My ex-girlfriend was drinking a lot of coffee, and she would kind of leave it on her desk. So she'd drink cold coffee, and I would always make fun of it. And then one day we went out just to get a coffee, and I was like, wait a second. I can see why you might come back to this thing, even if it's cold. Now, I don't know how you feel about cold coffee, but
I like it. Any kind of coffee.
All right.
I like an iced coffee too.
Iced coffee, yeah.
The good news is that we were always told that coffee is bad for you. It actually turns out it's not bad for you. It actually has a good action in the intestines, and
It does. That's true.
Not really bad for your brain either.
Coffee in the morning makes things
rough. Although it is addictive. It is. If I don't have coffee for 2 days, I'll have an excruciating headache. I'm seriously addicted.
How much do you drink?
Oh, not that much. I'll have 4 cups a day.
4 cups, yeah. I guess I drink about that much. Huh. That's great, yeah. Yeah, so there's another gentleman that's supposed to be on, according to the name of this stream, Mirth Barron.
I talked to him yesterday. It was most of the stream stuck with him. I talked to him quite a bit. He's like very much on board with this platform. He is. I don't know if you would want to be kind of characterized this way so up front, but he is of Irish extraction, but lives in England.
Okay.
And he's just a good guy. He understands all who our antagonists are and what we need to do. And he should be on shortly too. I anticipate that he's going to be a very big help. Just because like you and like Per, he's got really good mental equipment.
Well, I'm excited to meet him then.
Oh yeah, he's good. He's good. Yeah. We were talking yesterday about Scouse culture how he appreciates it. That's the in the Liverpudlian area. These people are, if not entirely Irish, they're largely Irish. They're kind of a blend of English. And I pointed out a movie to him that he's got to see called A Letter to Brezhnev. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've not seen it, no.
1985 or 1986, and it takes place in the Scouse culture. See these Liverpool girls hook up with some Russian sailors, and it's just everything about the movie is really well done.
Is it like a comedy, a drama?
It's not a comedy, no, but some comedic elements, yeah. But it's no, it's I guess you'd call it a drama. Independent film, really, really good.
All right, no,
check that one out.
I will check that out. Link in the description. Maybe not.
I'll put it. I can put it later. Let's see. Letter to Brezhnev. You probably know better than I do how to find a streaming service for movies.
I'm getting pretty bad at it, to be quite honest. I quit the one that everyone says they're going to quit or should quit or whatever a couple of years ago, and I haven't really kept up. Although I guess because I do stupidly buy stuff off Amazon, we do have an Amazon Prime account, which I sometimes find my wife and daughter sneaking into. So that's all I know.
I'll just put the wiki page, and then you can find some way to stream it as you might, because the pages that I used for streaming movies are not working right now.
Okay, all right, thanks.
But there's other ones. I don't remember, because I'm not too big on movies generally. Why would I want to be propagandized by all that kosher stuff? Give me a break.
There is some, but like you said, with the independent stuff, there is some good stuff, and as well as, I mean, if you're going to watch,
and this is an example.
Yeah, well, I'm super. Well, I'm happy to be seeing it eventually. But there's another thing, like even some of the kosher stuff. In fact, I would say a lot of it at least gives you a warning, and I believe that a lot of it basically gives you a warning of what they're setting up, of what they're trying to push, etc. And I think that it's actually part of their game where they have some sort of contract with whatever it is, the universe or something like that, where they have to warn you, even though it's not through a method that you consider a warning. It's something that you dismiss.
And it's true that you can follow up on you can keep track of the games that they're playing through their media. Although, for me, doing that back in the days of television, for example, well, when television was still like a dominant media in the 90s, and their movies, yes, I could tell myself that I'm seeing what they're up to, but after a while, I was just torturing myself. It's like, enough already. I know where this stuff is going. I remember a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go see Pulp Fiction.
Right.
And I said to him, I hadn't seen it. I said, why do I want to see? I don't want to see it because I know that any movie coming out of Hollywood is going to be making an excuse for white women to go with blacks. And he looked at me, and I hadn't seen the movie, didn't know anything about it. He said, how did you know that in one of the final scenes, Uma Thurman was going to be with, comfortable there sitting by a pool with Lawrence Fishburne, having gotten over on the racists? I just, because I knew this is where they go. Okay, Quentin Tarantino, he's not kosher, but he may as well be. He's of that mindset. He's in the whole Hollywood.
Isn't he married to a very kosher person or something like that? Or he makes a lot of travels to a very kosher place in the world. He does. There's certainly kosher themes through his very powerful and moving movies.
Well, that's the good thing about this platform is that we're not like we're not caught up. So we're not shown up as, you know, absurdly fixated on the kosher question when it doesn't turn out to be a literal one of that tribe. That's the in the driver's seat of a particular thing,
Right.
because, well, Metzger had a good way of putting it. There's kosher mindedness, you know, one who's beholden to their culture, their liberal directives.
Right.
And that would be Quentin Tarantino for sure. What an asshole.
I don't know anything about him except for his movies, and I think that word sums up just about everything. Everything I know about him, so it's pretty fair to say.
It really is. It's incredible. I don't like anybody who likes him.
That is quite. He has quite then a larger than life presence there. Yeah. So have you ever seen? So I tried to. By the way, a couple of weeks ago, I had a stream. I think maybe it was 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago, with Claire Caw about the movie The Life of Brian, Monty Python.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
Well, it's neither here nor there. I think we had a couple of laughs, and it was interesting trying to discuss a film with a person that really, really wants to discuss secular Coranism. But it was an interesting blend of trying to laugh about a funny movie and then somehow getting winked back into secular Coranism. However, it was an interesting discussion, and the other part is that my favorite film, which I thought maybe
I liked The Life of Brian. I didn't know the problem. It was cool.
Yeah, it was. Back when I was a young man, it was one of my favorite, comedy films or slapstick or whatever you want to call it. But my favorite movie of all time was, since I was young, and is a film. I don't know if it's independent or not. It's called The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Oh yeah, that was good. Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Oh yeah,
Kung Bushman.
Yes, it's got the white man that can do anything he wants. He's incredibly, he's clever. He knows all the tricks. He knows who to use, who not to use. He knows who to avoid. He knows which.
But he's a good guy. He's
not used in a negative way. I mean, he's friends with everyone essentially, not friends to his own detriment, but he's friends with the people that are good. He helps the people that are good. He knows who the bad guys are. He can throw a rock and hit a snake at 20 meters, and the snake will drop on a bad guy. He can use a submachine gun to burst open these poison pods just perfectly right over a terrorist. He's, that sort of man. But in front of a woman, all of that just falls apart, and it becomes all thumbs. And it's just
like me.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It just
that's the way a lot of us white guys are, just these awkward Caucasians. We just nerd out, especially before like a beautiful white woman like in that movie, which is funny because the Kung Bushman looks at her while she's like bathing, and I came across the ugliest creature that I'd ever seen.
Yes,
she had this white hair. She's a blonde,
stringy
white hair like an old lady.
Yes,
like an old lady.
Yeah, it was
hysterical. The naive point of view, the fly on the wall night. Yeah, and then this. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, go on. No. You don't go on.
I did that scene. Is just a great scene. It's also like the one thing that shows, I guess, the naive. Let's say the naive. The Bushmen wear essentially no clothes, and he's watching a white woman undress. And I think 30 years or 40 years after this movie is made, we associate a black man watching a white woman taking off her clothes as something that's going to be, something's going to happen to her and it's not going to be good, or something that she and he are going to do. But in that situation, it is in his, she has come to his area and he's interacting with her as something foreign, as something completely alien.
No, wait a minute though.
Yeah.
Really, the Kung Bushmen are a little bit different. Probably if any black people I have sympathy, compassion, even a bit of concern for, it's them, because they are the oldest people on Earth. They have the densest accumulation of mitochondrial DNA. We all descend from the Sand Bushmen, and so and I see them as basically a gentle kind of nomadic people. So I don't know that I found that particularly threatening of him.
No, so I didn't mean, when I said the black man watching a white woman undress, or there's some sort of untoward relationship, I meant just in how we envision that sort of relationship right now, talking through Hollywood, talking through, the news reports, talking about, when we find out, the crime statistics, anything like that. But this is a wholly separate situation. His own.
There's a world of difference between the Bushmen and
Yes.
and American blacks.
Well, not only that. I mean, in the film itself, it shows the Bushmen reacting completely negatively and to all of civilization around him. And of course, the civilization in that area, there's certain parts that are white, there's certain parts that are black, but it's he is the man, the primordial man, who's living off the land, literally digging tubers to get water, and then collecting dew from plants in the morning, and then apologizing to animals that he's just killed, and
it's neat.
It's
and they have that click language. It is incredible. And you can even see in the faces that the source of the various peoples, that you see the Oriental in there melding with the pre-European. It's neat, really neat stuff. But I mean, like you say, their aversion to civilization is a world of difference from the homies in America who'll be kind of grooving and like shucking and jiving on top of Western civilization.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's even a scene in that where Miss Thompson, before she goes into the bush, is sitting down next to a woman who's about ready to have dinner or lunch, during work. And the woman looks at her, and this is after this movie shows you all these intense scenes using machinery, knowing how to cross a street, which if you think about it, how to cross a street is actually quite insane if you think about it, if you're a bushman just looking at it, right? Like, it just seems insane. And so
the cars are scaring him, right?
Yeah. Well, he didn't go into the city, fortunately. I think he would have gone insane. But I think the creator is trying to show he's juxtaposing the life in the bush that's simple and pure and natural versus the unnaturalness of the civilization, which is something that all of us talk about all the time. But one scene that just nails it after showing all these horrible scenes of office work, of factory work, etc., from all these other people that the Bushman doesn't have to interact with at all. There's a woman during lunch break sitting next to Kate Thompson, who becomes one of the main characters, and she turns to Kate Thompson and says, "Does the noise in my head bother you?" And that basically sums up perfectly the situation in the civilization, because that's where the terrorists come out of it. All these massive wars come out of that civilization that we see just in the movie. No, I'm not talking about anything else. And then even the president of that place talks through a radio, and then the people that listen to it think that it's not him talking. Like, no one can believe in the same reality. They're all just so fractured. And of course, the Bushman sees everything essentially through unfiltered eyes.
Neat.
Yeah, very cool movie.
I agree, but for some reason, women don't like it as much as men, I found.
Right. They like Titanic, and they wonder why we don't cry when Leonardo DiCaprio sinks at the end. Just like that meme goes. And of course, I don't know what we care about in that. I can't relate to Leonardo DiCaprio. I can't really. His face is so weird. Why would he be a leading man? I don't know. That was that was the 1990s, right? The middle or late 1990s, and that was, I think, that was when the weak or the very cute sort of man started to really become in vogue.
Is he cute? Oh,
well, that's a thing. A lot of the girls around me, I was in my late teens when that movie came out, and all the girls were talking about how cute Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my God!
And so that was the first time I'd ever heard of that word attached to a man before. And then for a while that became sort of popular. I can't remember. There were a couple other.
I think Kate Winslet was good looking, which is almost unusual for a Hollywood star. They're usually
right,
not especially good looking, but she
is attractive. She is
definitely
attractive. Well, what do you think about? I was going to say Jane Austen. Yeah, what do you think? No, not Jane Austen. She played in a Jane Austen film. She was the main character in Pride and Prejudice in the film, not the BBC adaptation. I always forget her name. Keira Knightley. What do you think about that one?
Keira Knightley's gorgeous.
Yes, absolutely.
And not only that, one thing that I like about her, and this is going to be maybe controversial, but she's flat chested, and I had a flat chested girlfriend, and I liked it. I tried to promote my liking of that, because I don't want women to get breast implants.
Right.
They ruin themselves. I've also had a girlfriend who was big busted, and that was great too. But I'd like for women to understand that if they're flat chested, just believe it. It's fine. It's erotic. It's good. No problem.
I find her gorgeous from every angle, on every front, every valley, whatever. It's just gorgeous. And my other favorite one is Audrey Hepburn.
Well, she was a lesbian. Did you know that?
Did not know that. Did not know that.
You know what? This is only a bit of a digression, but there's a really interesting fact about Audrey Hepburn, is that she had a house on Long Island Sound that was among the coastal houses that were completely swept away by a hurricane and tidal wave on the same day. This is why people don't tend to know about it, because it happened the same day that Hitler had his troops enter Czechoslovakia in 1938. That captured the headlines. Well, it's not. But Catherine Hepburn, she lost her house, everything, all her heirlooms was all swept into the ocean. Mansion.
Are we talking about the same woman? I'm talking about Audrey.
Yeah.
Wait.
Audrey, you're talking about Audrey. I'm talking about Catherine. No,
okay.
No.
Well, there we go. Wait. So Audrey, I don't think. Catherine, she was a beautiful woman, but Audrey Hepburn, I think she's the type that from the 50s and 60s that basically.
We'll come back to Audrey. Let me just finish the story.
Bring it on.
With Catherine. You did. I think you said Catherine to begin with, maybe mistake, but anyway,
I might have mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. She. Another family a few miles up the coast, they did what a lot of families did. They went up into the attic of their house because the water kept rising floor by floor, right? And eventually the attic broke off, and they're up there, and their attic became like a raft, and part of the roof like a sail, and they sailed out to sea. and they wound up, after I don't know how long, half day or half night at sea on this boat, always, a half inch from death. The thing could break apart. They by morning got somehow swept back onto the shore or close to it, and the raft, or what became the raft of their attic, broke apart just after they got on. It's like really a miraculous story. Incredible. It's on I think it's called The American Experience. You can see that episode. It's just such a fascinating story that I had to digress into that. Sorry. Yeah. Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn. Yeah. I was going to say, I think her type,
not exactly my type. Not my type.
But doesn't, well, okay, but the way her face is a little bit different, but I think, I've always found that her type is a basic paste on to a Keira Knightley of the future. She's not quite as chiseled in the face.
That's probably true.
Yeah,
it's probably true. I'm a little bit prejudiced against classic beauty because it's been in America. It's been so sold and promoted as the beauty. Every woman. I know she's not a blonde, but just everyone has to be blonde, small nose, straight up and down cheekbones, big boobs, and it's like it becomes oppressive because I kind of like also Mediterranean types. You know, a woman who's got a biggish nose and dark hair to contrast with light skin. You know, sinewy, maybe small-breasted. You know,
Well, apart from the nose,
at least I want it known that this is beautiful as well. That there's not only one type of beauty, and you know, when these women are like, I really hate it when guys will act like this is not beautiful, or and they'll you know, they'll kind of talk. But what happens, it seems to me, that these kinds are sort of like tossed off to the third world, put under the bus, and which really gets my macho hankles up.
Wait, do you honestly see that? On there's a Telegram channel called The Beauty of White Women, and it's got white women from basically all over the place, brown hair, olive skin, you know, light
that's
skin,
good.
freckles, and they've got like
a channel.
Yeah,
on
YouTube?
YouTube?
Telegram. Telegram channel.
Oh.
It's really worth it. Let me see. I don't know if you want me to type the link in here, because I know you don't use.
Well, that's a new thing, because growing up and it's good, but growing up in America, there's been this destruction of the ecological buffer of continental Europeans for lack of appreciation, and this is still going on with, like, you know, the latest from Kevin McDonald that you know, like, oh, we have to be concerned with only Northwestern Europeans. Well, why not advocate all Europeans, you know, and their nationalism? So you know, a particular kind is not your cup of tea. Okay, don't go there, but you don't have to throw them under the bus, for heaven's sake. The point is that this perspective, and for all the good he's done, Kevin McDonald is sort of guilty of doing that, of like overemphasizing the Northwest European thing. They are drawing an unhelpful line against other Europeans, which cuts off, or begins to cut off, the ecological buffering of these people that that the continent has, that European has, and America doesn't have this. So you've got a direct, awkward interface from Northern Europeans to Africans, which doesn't work well, you know, because I think arguably Southern Europeans are evolved to interface more effectively, and therefore, in a buffering sense, protecting against Africanization and the naive, and not being quite as naive to allow for this incursion.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that I think that makes sense. I only wonder, like, maybe I had the wrong people around me when I was in the 90s or 80s or whenever it was that I grew up, and I didn't get the sense that all the guys, just like the northern European girl with the blonde hair and the very fair skin, it seemed like most of my friends were split. There was a lot of, you know, the blondes are great, but a lot of my friends were really into, and I was as well, into brunettes, and that brunette, of course, spans the gamut from, you know, very fair hair to, or very fair skin, sorry, to more olive color and various, you know, facial features, etc. And I almost wonder if, like, that sort of the blondes is coming almost itself from Hollywood, because that's
it. In the day-to-day, in men's preferences, I think that what you're saying is held true in my experience too. The thing that was annoying is what was being presented in the media to me, that it was, you know, only one type of beauty. And, you know,
right.
like I said, I like women with, for example, I'm not gonna reject someone if she has a small nose, but I like a woman who has a biggish nose, you know, with character. And you're not going to see that presented as a beauty, generally speaking. What's her name? Sabrina. Oh, she was in the Passion of Christ.
Sabrina.
She played E.M. Bucci or something. But never mind. She had a big nose.
Okay. Now I'm going to be looking all this stuff up. Passion of the Christ. Passion of the Christ.
That's a Mel Gibson movie.
What was her name again? Sorry, Christine. No.
I'm trying to remember. I should remember. I think Sabrina Iannucci. Hold on, I'll find it in a second.
All right. Maybe I can find it faster.
Her lips are a little bit too big. I don't. They're not real. They're not like to the point of African, but I prefer her lips to be a bit thinner. But other than that, she's nice.
Sabrina Impacciatore.
Impacciatore, yeah.
She's gorgeous, man.
That's what I mean. But you know, someone like Tom White was like, "Ooh, she's ugly." It's like I don't want to hear it. Well, yeah, I think that you know, obviously the Swedish women have some of the most refined beauties that there are, and I'm not saying that that's not beautiful too, and they don't like that as well. It's just that you know, I don't like being in a position where you know I'm about to be castrated because it's assumed that I want this precious Nordic lady, even though I have some claim my mother was a redhead after all.
Very nice. I say that because they are very rare, and it's not because I obviously personally favor redheads, but man, redhead, that's something special, man. It is something there is, but you know what the thing is? It is something special, and I understand why some of the people who are, I guess, broadly speaking, you know, white positive or whatever, or you know, even some of the people that are, I don't know, I don't even know the right terminology. So, like for instance, today I was watching something from Murdoch, and they say the term wignat, and it turns out that they use it in a different way than I do. So I think that I'm using the word incorrectly. So I probably shouldn't use that word anymore. But the point is that, you know what? It's funny. I was like on this roll, and I just lost it midstream.
Take your time. I'm gonna have a sip of water.
You have a sip of water. What was I saying, man? Why am I getting lost here?
You'll remember.
I'll remember. Will I remember? I can't believe this is the second time it's done. It's the second time I've had this happen today. In fact, the last time was about half an hour ago.
Well, you're getting old.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it since I was a little bit young too. I've been getting old for a very long time. It looks like, or I've been old for a very long time.
That's
something
funny.
like that. Well, whatever. You know, I'll get to it. It'll come back.
It'll come back. Last night, something happened that never happened to me before. I scheduled the stream, and I put on. I was listening to some other podcast and I fell asleep and woke up. It was already and I was past the schedule, so I rescheduled it. I rested my eyes, listening to something else, waiting for the hour to pass. And I woke up, it was already past the schedule again. And so I said, okay, I'll reschedule it. I rested my eyes 3 times. I fell asleep 3 times. I never did anything like that before. And it's like, oh, man, that was really something.
Well, congratulations.
3 times. I'm well rested. Yeah. To be congratulated 3 times.
I think I did something like that in my main YouTube channel. They have this thing called a premiere. I think instead of a recorded video that you upload and then it just goes live whenever. It turns out there's this thing called schedule. You can schedule it to be an hour from now or 3 days from now, and then you could watch it almost like it's live. And so I did that, but I didn't realize what it was. I thought it was just because I noticed another person that was. A person I followed did a premiere, and so I watched it, but I didn't realize it was live, like an idiot. I didn't realize it that it was live, and there was like a live chat and all that. So I did that on my own channel, and I had people complaining about it because they're like, well, "Who do you think you are, man? Are you like PewDiePie or something like that?" And I didn't even know that the people that followed me even know who that guy was, and I didn't really understand the whole live stream thing because I hadn't watched any at the time. But it turns out you just recorded video goes up live. You can schedule it for any time you want, and that's a premiere. And that's how I discovered it. I just thought it meant it would go to the top of a list.
That would be a term coming from the marketing ranks of of the alt right days. So I wouldn't use that myself. That's meant to disparage white nationalism, I guess.
Yeah, I had no idea what it was. I mean, obviously, I've been using it wrong, and the people that was using it, the Murdoch that were using it, they used it in a different way. So I'm not even going to touch that word anymore. I have no idea what it is.
I wouldn't recommend it. It's because that comes from our enemies. What was the guy's name? It was put into the hands of the one Republican guy who was eventually. He was the most popular guy on Twitter for a while, and he was the big advocate of Trump. He had the avatar of
what's his name? The Donald or something like that? No.
No.
I don't know. I don't pay attention to politics.
He was basically a civic nationalist who was a rich kid who was from New York, was advocating for
Styx Hexenhammer.
No. He's famous in online
real
culture.
world?
In online culture.
Sargon of Akkad.
Nope. But it's it's like that. It's on that level. He had the ball cap that said "Make America Great," and what's the name of the actor with the Spanish name?
Antonio Banderas.
No, his father was in Apocalypse Now.
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, Charlie. He has a Charlie Sheen avatar with the Make America Great hat on.
No idea.
And well, this guy was a popularizer of the term Wignat. And he was, because he was a mainstream Republican civic nationalist, so he was trying to disparage ethno-nationalists, which is bad, of course.
Yeah.
We don't need to be disparaged because what we're doing is 100% correct. It's we're defending ourselves, if for no other reason than because we're being attacked for our race and ethnicity. So to capitalize on those from our ranks who are tactless and whatnot, by calling them wiggers.
Yeah, see, that sort of makes sense that it combines, and it always sounded like they're combining that with something else, but
it's a stupid snobbery.
Like you said, I'm getting old, so I guess I'm kind of missing the memes here. So
no, you're coming to this. You're a normal person who's coming to this stuff fairly recently. So and you're not necessarily apprised of all this stuff that there was no reason that you would have to be aware of.
Right.
And when you said that you were a liberal, well, that's basically normal too, and that's one big difference of this platform. Paradigmatic conservatism, what that means is that we have functional borders and boundaries, fairly conservative, but within those fairly conservative boundaries, not for those conservative boundaries, our individual liberties are fairly free. So right. We are the liberal folk are not wanting to be subject to accounts requested and interrogation as if living under the Stasi. We don't need that. We don't require that. So when you tell me that you were a liberal, to me that's just normal.
I felt pretty normal. I still feel like I think I was in some ways more normal back then than I am now.
Well, I mean, if you're living in a crazy society, it's kind of not normal to be normal or something.
Yeah, well, you know what? I was so I went bicycling yesterday with a couple of normie friends. Actually, one guy that I just met yesterday, and the other guy was a guy I've known for a couple of years now because his daughter and my daughter go to the same ballet.
Is it Japanese or
He's
That's
actually an American guy that's married to a Japanese, and he would certainly describe himself as a liberal, maybe even a progressive, normal guy. And it was, well, it was quite incredible how we just decided before we started chatting, just drop the politic, drop anything else, and we were just chatting about gardening, we're chatting about barbecuing, we're chatting about working out and all this stuff.
Oh, that's so soothing, though. It's really healing to get into that stuff.
And we bicycled. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but when it comes to like gardening and stuff and like watching stuff grow and you just kind of get a sense, you return to a sense of life processes. I find it there's something profoundly healing about all that.
Yeah, well, it was quite cool actually. So we're sitting after we're done with the bicycle ride. We went to his house to have a barbecue, and we're watching he's got 3 artichokes, and I was like, man, my artichokes were eaten by aphids. He said, well, we don't get as many bugs here. And then I was looking at his strawberries, and my strawberries are all eaten by birds. And he said, well, we don't get a lot of birds here. And then we're looking at see what else. When you do like zucchini, you have to basically take the male zucchini and the female zucchini. You have to pollinate them with a brush. And so if you're doing gardening, you have to know male and female. But we had a conversation a little bit later on for some reason about snowboarding, or no, about tennis. And I think they were talking about the differences possibly. They were like, they were trying to pussyfoot around the topic. They're like, there seems to be a slight difference between male and female when it comes to sports. And I was like, well, it's quite massive, obviously, but no one knows who they're talking with, right? You meet a normal person and you don't know what's going to trigger them. And so these 2 guys who are, just regular normie, kind of liberal progressive guys, one of them knows what I think on a lot of things. The other guy doesn't know me, but really pussyfooting around a thing that's just obvious. It's like, okay, 2 years ago, there was the Winter Olympics, and we were watching women's snowboarding. I was watching with my wife on the sofa, and we're like, damn, that's incredible. Did you see she just did like a 360 or a 540 or whatever? And we were so stoked. And then suddenly the male snowboarding started. And suddenly it wasn't a 540, it was like a 720 or whatever. And the height was like an extra 2 meters in the air. And my wife, she was just suddenly going crazy. I was probably getting some coffee in the kitchen. And she was like, what is going on? She was just going apoplectic. And I was, okay, what? And so I ran into the sofa, and she was just going crazy. She was like, I've never seen anything like it. And we had just watched the best women snowboarders in the world. So I was talking about this with these guys, and they started to warm slightly from that moment. These guys that know how to garden, that know there's a difference between a male and a female plant in order to get a zucchini, we're starting to warm up to the fact that maybe it's okay, at least to talk about it. And so what
about this black Supreme Court justice who was asked if she could define the difference between a man and a woman, and she said she couldn't.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. But on the other hand,
yeah,
this is not meant to disparage the topic that sex differences are of course very real.
Yeah.
This is an example of a red caping of a social advocacy issue. This is what they do.
To get you to talk about it? Is that
no? Well, no, it's a diversion, but that's not the thing. Let me finish. They exaggerate greatly. They take a good point for social advocacy, and they exaggerate it greatly. Like, for example, the fact that many people, many young people, boys and girls, are hurt by an exaggerated sense of, an exaggerated differentiation of male and female, because, most people are, have some degree of neutrality. They're not the most masculine, they're not the most feminine.
Right.
And so there's a very legitimate cause for correction of this and help of young people understand, and normalization of this sort of neutral continuum there between the most feminine, the most masculine, and people, who are, you can almost say normal and in between.
Yeah.
And but they take that and they exaggerate it and they make it ridiculous.
Right.
And so they're taking something that really could be a very healing kind of prescription applied to the populace and to help, advocate people who are being oppressed by, absurdly requirements for absurd masculinity or absurd femininity, and they are if not exaggerating it, reversing it and weaponizing it.
Yeah.
To where people react to the whole concept of of what's meant to be going on here, in you can say a postmodern sense in the way that it would be understood correctly. And so they got people reacting like, this, here's men as men. The thing is that, very, very, I don't know if you've experienced them, but my father was this way, for example. But very, very masculine men can be a drag, just as very feminine women can be a drag.
Yeah.
You have to be competent in the world. You have to have some, empathy and like, some facility with abilities that really aren't even contingent upon sex differentiation in the social world, right? So, and these roles can be somewhat constraining. I'm not. Definitely am not in favor of boys acting in an effeminate way.
Yeah.
I dislike that very much, but there can be an extreme where of an expectation of confidence and assertiveness, which is counter-intellectual, because intellectual is reflecting on the different possibilities and not just immediately acting. And worse than that, when you have a universalization, which I accuse Claire Call of gender differentiation, universal maturity, you've got a situation where blacks become the paragon of masculinity, because you're not going to, you're not going to out macho blacks. They're what, 200,000 years older than us, and their kind of selection in most of their kinds have sort of quantified and maxed out masculinity. And they literally have more testosterone, their men and their women. And along with that comes hyper assertiveness and aggressiveness. And this is not something for white boys to emulate. And
Right.
That's why I'm really bothered. I'm upset, even, I can say, by so many people saying, our problem is that our white guys aren't they're not manning up. They're not man enough. Well, that's bullshit. Our problem is that we don't have borders, and that we're not protecting our kind of masculinity, which is different. It's more sublimated, and it creates a different, let's just say, a different way of life, and a more thoughtful way of life. We're not R selectors. We're not K selectors. We're not R selectors. We're K selectors. We're evolved to, for a qualitative upbringing of our kids, not just like to do the manosphere thing and screw women and leave babies to be taken care of by whomever. For the most part, we're more that way, and so this really what could be salutary social rhetoric and advocacy is misrepresented to white people, and these distortions are called the left, and they've got these right wingers in reaction chasing these red capes, and that would be on the abuse of these gender issues would be just an example of one of the red capes that the kosher folks are playing against us.
Yeah, I think there's certainly depending on what corner of all of this you go into, there's certainly like that sort of ex-manosphere thing. There's the people that have just discovered that there's something good possibly about masculinity who go hyper on that. There's it's kind of like a revival of the Hollywood trope of what a jock is seems to have infiltrated a lot of our side, and I think that's in a way not by accident. But I also think it's at the moment, I think maybe not it's not good, but at the same time it's just reaction. And so
well, it is reaction, but let me connect with something here.
Yeah.
Like the right wing in general, where you got a reaction into masculinity and manning up.
Right.
You have the Azov battalion, these neo-Nazis
right.
who are being equipped by the kosher regime to sacrifice their lives and to kill other white lives, right? They're manning up, right? They're doing the ultra masculine thing, so
right.
they become tools of Operation Clean Break, with Zelensky, and that would be an example how our was it Philip Rushton noted that between Asians, Africans, and Europeans there are different rates of maturity, and there would be different levels of sublimation, which would create a different kind of masculinity for us that is to be respected, and yet it's not. I mean, if there's any criticism of the gender, I mean, I would say that our women should be called upon to be more feminine, not our men. And again, it's not. I'm not saying that our men should be cowards. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be masculine in a certain. I have nothing really against jocks or guys are big, strong, and capable and all that. That's fine. But when it comes to the point where we're being called upon to be stupid and to act like dumb Africans, then I have to take that is Whiggerism, really. Yeah. I mean, because young girls in particular, pure girls, when they're unsocialized, can really, really overvalue confidence.
Right.
And that is the opposite of empathy. Confidence is the opposite of empathy and intellectual survey. And intellectualism practically deployed is really, I think the kosher folks have done a marvelous job of convincing our people that that's not something that we do and that it's feminine. But this overvalue of confidence is very destructive, and there's no people more confident than the Africans and the homies, and it's not. It's what that means to say is that confidence per se is not necessarily good, because you see the kind of societies that they create with their confidence, and of course they think that they're just the most wonderful people in the world. So I mean, even there are women who for the most part our men don't want, still think that they're just the most wonderful.
Well, it's kind of like it's the old divide and conquer, right? So if you have a pie and that pie is supposed to represent masculinity, and you've got good parts of like the quote unquote masculine, which is assertive, which is strong, which is fear nothing, quote unquote, and then you've got other parts of it which are the intellectual, the intuitional, and all this, and that's all a whole pie. When you cut it up and you only serve one slice, then you're kind of not bifurcating, obviously not bifurcating, like many fricating.
Very true. You're dehumanizing it.
Right. But I think that's so. If the whole man is the pie, and we're right now, like I said, I think it's in reaction. And once you have a reaction, it's because you're going through some sort of revolution against what is being considered the norm. And I think because through the 90s, through the early 2000s, you had that sort of like focus on the weak, sickly male, like in Friends, and that you have now a reaction to that. And it's wrong. It's going too far. But eventually, you're going to have a synthesis of what the weak, sickly, that thing that they were promoting for those 2 decades, which was not good, and it was not the intellectual man. It was not the intuitional man. It was a deformation of that completely, and it was like stuffed into this horrible sock. Well, that whatever was hidden by that is now going to come back out, but it's going to have to be rediscovered, because if you were,
well, it does have to be rediscovered, and you're right, and it goes back to something that's been going on for a very long time among our people, is that we have been prone to self-transcendence, whereas we need to be more self-assertive. As European men have to be more self-assertive. Now, that's not. But the problem is that that's not always easy to do. If it's not outright illegal, then you're confronted with the brute fact. You might not know this. You might not have had experience of it. Try asserting yourself with blacks, and you'll find that it's not always so easy. And they are good at it, probably because of their testosterone and their warrior gene and all that. And I'm sure that many of white guys have gotten killed for trying to assert themselves against blacks, and you have like, the bully syndrome is he's going to like, not want to be, how dare this scrawny little white guy dare to offend me, the alpha black. But nevertheless, we do have to assert ourselves in the way that will be effective by our skill sets. And so, yeah, I'm basically agreeing with you. This is something that European men have needed to do for a very long time, but really the place to assert ourselves is in establishing borders and boundaries of our people. And that happens with, the crucial matter of citizenship and who is in our union, so to speak, would benefit from the strength of our social leverage, whereas those people are excluded, non-Europeans for the most part, would not benefit, not be able to exploit us and impose upon us, no matter how much they can bench press or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the last thing just on that topic was, I think that if you look back through the ages, you'll see, various idolizations of quote unquote masculinity and quote unquote femininity, and maybe they get more of it right than we get, maybe they get less of it right than we get. But even if you look back through Hollywood movies, you don't get, back in the olden days, you don't get so much of the macho guy without a brain. You get the guy that kind of does synthesis. Well, you get more of the warrior poet. You get the man that can think about things, that can figure things out, who's assertive when he needs to be, and is capable of basically everything. And
I think that's because a more European model of masculinity was still in operation at the time.
Right
now, with the disorder of modernity, these standards in our what's the word? Our rate to maturity is disrupted, and where masculinity is judged at a more episodic basis. The the end zone dance becomes, the paragon, not the guy who labors at school to make scientific discoveries and creates a great society. So yeah, I mean, and so these young girls are not going to have the perspective of the broad pattern to and they're going to be reacting like to what seems to be the winning kind of masculinity, which will not necessarily be the European model.
Yeah, I mean, women are in their own way. They're more, what is the word, responsive, and so there's we back to the Titanic thing. So just that meme. There's the other part of the Titanic meme is, the first part, just for, just to reiterate it, is that why is this man, why is he so unemotional? He doesn't cry when Leonardo DiCaprio, drowns at the end. Well, the other part is that the man then he shows his face all scratched out and black because he's crying. And what is he crying at? He's crying at this male bird that's lost his partner. He's the last of his kind and he's crying for his mate. But he doesn't know that there's no more a female mate out there. And so he cries at the end, and he's the last of his species and dies. And the man is then, that's what he cries about. Well, I've related this thing, and I've showed even the bird that's basically the subject of that meme to several females, and they don't care about it. they don't. For them, it's this fantasy that Leonardo DiCaprio is out there and he's just drowned, and that's what she should worry about. And it's,
well, here's the thing is that we have a situation. The disorder of modernity has ruptured our classificatory bounds and therefore our means of social accountability and socialization with it.
right,
Human socialization.
right,
And so we fall atavistically to a more brute animal level.
Right.
On that level, females, puerile females, can be quite brutal, and they're going to incite genetic competition. And on that level, they're not even necessarily concerned if their kind wins. They're going to breed with the winner of the war. They just incite the war, and it doesn't matter who wins. They know that they're gonna breed with a quote better guy.
Don't you reckon that's gone on for quite a long time before modernity, though? I mean, I'm reading.
Yeah. But it's traditional societies had a way of buffering to some extent. They
fought back, right? We're not living in. There's nothing traditional, of course, as you know. About
that stuff is always there because that's on the most fundamental animal kind of pre-human level. It's
Right.
there. It will be there, but it's important. It's incumbent upon a society with any responsibility to our heritage and our legacy that we commandeer the socialization of our species, of our homeostasis, that we maintain ourselves, that we not be subject to the arbitrary haphazard of natural fallacy. This is what Heidegger's project was doing. This is central to the postmodern turn. Yeah, I guess. I mean, you're right to say that it's not only modernity that left us in this disorder, and to where we fall out to these atavistic circumstances where we're judged episodically and not on the basis of our broad social pattern. But the project is nevertheless that we require social ordering, a moral
Right.
order. so that we are not subject to this absolutely brutal, puerile female incitement to genetic competition and liberalness. Now Claire says that we live in a matriarchy. Not exactly, but we do live in a situation where females, I call them, because they're not even exactly socialized to where you would call them women, are an extremely powerful position.
Right.
Because, we have to classify in order to make sense, and yet classifications are prohibited. So the one classification that's almost unavoidable perceptually is is sexual difference. And yet our boundaries we're prohibited from protecting our boundaries, and our women are going to be solicited from all angles, become super overconfident and articulate and empowered for this liberalism, and become gatekeepers to maintain that power, where they'll only let through guys who are going to pretty much maintain an open borders approach, an open boundaries approach, and speak of any guy who objects as if he's just a weakling who objects to the quote reality of this natural situation. And so I'm forgetting exactly where that connects to what you're saying, but this kind of tyranny, that we're subject to, of the predilections of young girls who overvalue confidence to the point where Africans would seem like they're like just really a great model for how we should be, when obviously they're not. All the things that happen, the multiple sex partners before marriage, the babies out of wedlock and before marriage, the poverty, the violence, and myriad social problems. These things would be corrected with could be corrected with the reestablishment of our borders and boundaries, which really is the essence of the postmodern project. And of course, the postmodern project has been red-caped, has been misrepresented by the kosher folks, so that it's presented as if it's this Dada hyper-relativistic, ironic nonsense, when that's not at all what it was meant to do. What Heidegger was doing, what Vigo was doing, and his students like Hans Georg Gadamer were doing, is correcting modernity, its universalism, and bringing us back from the Cartesian estrangement into a management of our group, a centralization of our group and our relative concerns. And that would require, of course, the reestablishment of our group boundaries and borders, which would structure accountability, social accountability.
What do you reckon, though? So when was it that Heidegger was not only alive but really publishing?
Oh, he was publishing even after the war, but his most famous book, Being in Time, was, I think, 1925.
Yeah.
But he wrote quite a bit before that, and quite a bit after. I even think some of his better works were written after the war.
I've never actually read him. I've read a lot of. I'm sorry, I've heard a lot of people talking about him, so I obviously need to read. I just one of the things that kind of strikes me a little bit is that what we're looking at is kind of when we talk about modernity, people do kind of have a different definition of when it started. Like, is modernity, let's say from the 1900s on? Is it like 1800s on? Is it just this philosophical category? Is
Well,
it
I like with all these terms,
yeah.
what I do is I find I tend to latch on to what makes consistent sense, and what makes consistent sense of modernity is that it starts with Descartes, and that it unfolds from there as sort of an extension of the Epicureans, their disparagement of tradition and superstition and custom and habit, and their valuation of what's new, things that are new are good, and experimentation and discovery, so on and so forth. I could elaborate, but this was very good for science. Great scientific discoveries were made through modernity, but it was very destructive for the maintenance of different cultures. And the original concern was, of course, with non-European cultures. But for those who are aware, we realize that this universalism of modernity is destructive to European peoples too. And there were two sides to the Cartesian divide. One was Descartes, sort of abstract, beyond nature, and there's John Locke, the empirical side within nature. Like I was talking about the past few days, how he viewed classification, the English aristocratic class, as a pernicious fiction that didn't have empirical basis. So, and that was written into the American way. And while it's good that the British aristocratic class be done away with, and that the people be seen as a whole, an organic whole, and it's a noble concept. The idea that of classifying and biological patterns and discriminating and accordingly was bound to be destructive in the American context, particularly as it was weaponized by the kosher folk in the form of civil rights and anti-racism. But anyway, and someone like Heidegger, of course, can observe this. Nietzsche too, not just the kosher folks. And before him, Vico was one of the first critics of Descartes. So this is where the postmodern turn starts with Heidegger, or well, it has its seeds in Vico, and then a little bit more in Nietzsche, and then really begins to take form as a concern in Heidegger. So it goes basically from, I would say, you can say roughly from Descartes to Heidegger. You can say World War I was also part of the disillusionment with modernity, because they all thought that progress was limitless, and then there was this civilization doing this after all. But that's around the same time as Heidegger too. So he was functioning on the heels of World War I.
Do you reckon there's a difference in the sort of normal what was the normal man back then versus the normal man right now, and what would the difference be? In other words, do you think the man, as we use the terms, let's say just grug brain stuff, as we use the term masculinity now, how much can you bench? Can you do a 4-minute mile or whatever? Did you lift today? And did you slap?
No, and no. What did you say about women? I might have done that.
I don't know, because I'm gonna add.
Well, these sound to be like universal questions. I'm really concerned. Masculinity and femininity is fine. I don't want men to be feminine.
No, of course not.
But it's sort of like plucked out of a universal context.
What? No, it's true. I'm not sure. So I guess I generally agree with how you like what you consider the problem of, let's say, how we're hyper focused on like this. Well, like what I brought up with the pie, right? So there's a lot of guys that are chasing the quote unquote masculinity through the jock stereotype from Hollywood. They're chasing that right now on whatever, if you want to call it, whatever, the dissident side, whatever. I don't care if it's left wing or right. I don't know that. So I'm not a political guy, right? So, but they're doing that. But at the same time, like, you had brought up that we should be, or maybe that the side of man that's trying to discover new things and is approaching things, intellectually, and then I brought in intuitionally. That's sort of lost on.
Well, I want to emphasize that I'm allowing for I'm thinking from a group perspective. So I'm saying that there's different kinds. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be
No, of
there's anything
course.
wrong with it. A jockish kind, and a woman likes that. That's fine. But I don't want but I also think there's place for more nerdish kinds of guys too.
Well, of course, I think we all agree with that. That what I wonder about is how, like, for instance, when I met a lot of guys who are, gentlemen who are in their 80s, who are in their 70s, back when my grandfather was about that age, and they talked about what it was like when they were young, and then just from knowing their character, I didn't know any of these sort of like buffoonish sort of people, and I knew some of them were I guess guys that we might call jocks, for lack of another term. And it seems like that we're living through stereotypes because we've lost the center. It's because we're living through stereotypes. Even the idea of intellectual, what we have is,
that might be an expression of Cartesian anxiety in this situation of late modernity. Guys straining for a kind of foundational connection that they can hang their hat on, that they can within this topsy-turvy, within this disorder. That's why they're so uptight that they have to be, they might have to max out their masculinity rather than being a more integrated and normal kind of guy. Masculine, yes, but not ridiculous.
In some sense, though, I think that they're right. And this is the sense, is that because that sort of focus on, let's just say, the chud or the grug brain, that thing's been lost for so long. Because of that, all we have is left. Like, for instance, you look at a picture of the man with the really weak body shape, and he's walking down the street with his girl, and he's about this, whatever the height is he wearing the same amount as her? And you see the comments below on a Facebook post, and you're like, wow, modern man is so, and they're not disparaging the modern man. They're talking him up, because on the other side of this Facebook meme is a man from the past with a chiseled chin. And he's an idealization of the form anyway. There's a chiseled chin, and he's like looking at the future. He's staring something down that you don't see on the screen. It looks like he's brave, etc. And then the comments are like, yeah, but you know what? He probably couldn't give the woman an orgasm. And they're not talking about the modern guy. They're talking about the guy from before, and that's because in their brain they're thinking this guy's just hyper focused on his own desires, etc. They're not. We know that men back then had higher testosterone. This is among our own men. They had their skeletons were a little bit heftier. We even know from 100 years ago. Now this is self-reporting, but I'm not sure that it's going to be a lie, that the penises were longer back then as well, and bigger. What I'm saying is that I think we've lost this connection, and there's this thing I've got this floating around in my brain, and that is that philosophy starts the moment you understand what your body can do. So I have never, and this is I'm basically saying how much of a weak and effeminate man that I am. I have not hunted and killed an animal by myself, and I think that that's kind of where things start. You have to. It's not just being manly because you can kill things. It's not being a big body. It's not being brutal. It's not that. But it's if you know how to do something, be an expert on the very basic things. If you can kill an animal in order to feed your family, from that point, everything else is surplus. Not that like survival is it. So philosophy, you can get deep into philosophy. You can get deep into all of the things that are necessary to build a better future for everyone else. But the basic building blocks of masculinity have to come from that. Like you can look at Plato. What was he famous for? What do some people talk about? He could throw anyone down. He had a huge back. He was muscular. Now, is the importance that he was hyper masculine or that he was, a big guy? No, that's not why we care about him. But he had that as the base. That was the structure, like his physical structure. And I believe this allowed him to have a connection with a higher mind, with a higher spirit. Now, not everyone connects that way.
That could be. I'm not going to. I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying. That connecting with our masculinity on that level can be almost like foundational for even.
It's transcended.
Philosophical. You certainly have to have ability to assert yourself. You can't just flutter around in your intellectual fancy. You've got to be able to make hard decisions and have abilities that to imbue your perspective. But I'm remembering something that Bowery said. He's very big on the issue of sexual differentiation and the importance of it, and he would certainly agree with you that our men are not masculine enough, and they're being constrained in their feral masculinity, and that and he prescribes all sorts of correctives for that. But by the same token, he does say that we are prohibited. What's called civilization has prohibited us from doing this. We are not allowed, getting away from the killing the animal example for example, we're not allowed to say to non-white interlopers, men, what the hell are you doing here? You and me, we're gonna have a fight, but not just any kind of fight. We're gonna fight in a way that a white man fights, which may involve technology, which means I don't care if you're Mike Tyson, I'm gonna kick your ass, right? We're not allowed to do that. And okay, this would be our natural recourse, but the thing is that civilization has made a contract which it has reneged upon. It said to us, okay, you will not fight over women and be that kind of macho guy, and that's cool, because we're going to look after the boundaries and the borders. We're going to have collectives of men who are manning the borders, and who are responsible to not allow immigrants and interlopers to come in and try to solicit and take your women from you. Well, they've reneged upon that contract, haven't they? And so not only have they reneged upon the contract, but we are still prohibited of ourselves from from taking up the fight and fighting for our women and our borders,
or even calling them our women. I mean, that's another thing.
Yeah.
But we're also, I think, like just to bring up the testosterone thing as well. There's those studies that were famous they were talking about last several months, where testosterone levels have dropped 10% per decade for about 30, I think, since 1979 or 1977, something like that. And so because of that, we have now a 40% reduction in that. So what sort of man can actually even say no? It's not even that we're not allowed to say it, but what sort of man can say no or say yes to the good things? I think that there's something that's actually chemically in there, or maybe not chemically is the right way, but there's another guy in Telegram actually, and I'm connecting this. He's this guy who's just stacked, and I think that's the word, stacked, like he's got muscles upon muscles. And he say that he used to be a skinny guy. Now he doesn't just like say, hey man, I'm stacked, but he actually argues with people, and it's one of those somewhat based debates, etc., whether or not you like those things. But he said that in his regular life as well, that once he started focusing on exercising his body, he started to be able to really use his mind, or at least the things that he thought about prior, he could actually use and use it in a way in a discussion with other people that he would never have thought of before. And so I think intrinsically that testosterone is super important. Now, it's not obviously be all end all, because as you have brought up many times,
it's got to be important, for sure.
Right. And there's the other thing. I mean, like, you know how many universities are there right now in the United States? I know that this is a rhetorical question, right? And same thing in Japan. How many universities? There's hundreds, if not thousands, in Japan alone. Everyone goes to university, but you come out with essentially a degree that all it does is allow you, because everyone has a degree. If everyone has a degree, everyone has to have a degree to get a job, right? you want to be a janitor? Well, maybe, just like in the Philip K. Dick Martian novel, like this guy was basically a janitor and he had to have a bachelor's of arts. He couldn't do anything in the future. He mourned the fact that he didn't have a master's in order not to be a janitor. And when everyone has a degree, you basically cater to the lowest common denominator. And so when you're catering to the lowest common denominator, and I'm of course I'm speaking to the choir here, then you can't have intellectual pursuits. They're gone. And you can't have it in science, you can't have it in philosophy. And even if you do, it's hidden by everything else. And so I think we're kind of, we have to have the intuitional forays into philosophy. We have to have the intellectual discussions. We have to pursue all of that. But right now we're working against, we're in a cloud, we're working against the cloud. The cloud is all around. The cloud is all that exists because everyone is funneled into the same thing. Got to have your degree, got to get and every university is basically becoming the same university. You got your liberal arts, which should be, as Jordan Peterson talks about, should be the core of things because it helps you uncover truth. But it's no longer about that. It's all about all these different hiding narratives, etc. And when you have that, all these men that could be focused on building themselves in a more transcendent fashion. Maybe they can't hunt, but they can idolize that sort of thing. They can work out. They can be just some sort of chud. But the chud starts.
Let me interject here. I have nothing against this. Nothing wrong, and it's good for guys who want to work out and build up. Follow the kind of like what's it? The golden one.
Right.
And follow that model. That's fine and good. But I'm an Aristotelian by philosophical outlook, which means balance. And I see it's particularly concerned. I'm particularly concerned that this not be overemphasized, particularly because, again, I don't think that white guys on the whole are going to out macho blacks. And hold on, let me finish. It's going in that direction when it's overemphasized, it gets to be like that. I'm not saying that they shouldn't work out, and it's not saying that it shouldn't be tough, strong, do all the dude things. That's fine. And on the other hand, our enemies certainly don't want us to be intellectuals. And you have to be aware of that. Right. They want to encourage the fact that this is something feminine. This is something that white guys don't do. So it can become a trick that's played on us, which I'm wary of, all too wary of, in my experience. And furthermore, again, some men are simply not going to be. You can work out and make yourself stronger and better. They're just not going to be, a dominant physical type, and they should rather be encouraged to focus on what they are good at, their skills. And I'm not saying that people should be dissuaded from being more masculine and assertive and all that. That's right, but there should be a balanced approach and not get so that we don't get misdirected into foolish reactionary position. Like, I think that the Azov Battalion is a good example. They're brave and they're going into war and they're getting themselves killed and they're killing other white people at the doltish behest of the Operation Clean Break regime there in Zelensky.
Yep.
Am I okay to chime in here? Firstly, can I just
Yeah,
say...
sorry, Mirth. You've been here a long time. We've been talking over you. How are you doing?
That's quite right. I just, Sunday's supposed to be a day of rest, and but such is the rich tapestry of life. There's a lot to say. I'll just try and summarize some of these things. The testosterone is big. It's also there is these things called xenoestrogens where they mimic estrogen in men. Euro man kind of shot himself in the foot when he invented plastic, unfortunately. But we might be able to fix it. We may be able to make technologies that can clean up plastic and sort of neutralize these things. So we may be able to fix some of that.
I believe that. I believe what you're saying is accurate.
Fertility as well. That men's sperm, the tails aren't as strong. We have weaker sperm as well. It's a really big topic. We could almost do a whole stream in it, really. But so that's an issue. Do you know Yukio Mishima? He's kind of like this kind of right-wing figure, Japanese guy, going back a little bit. But he was a famous author, among other things. But he basically was like quite a weakly, kind of sickly child, and then he became a Chad. There's this procession they have in Japan. I can't remember. They bring in a certain type of not totem pole, whatever it is, and the local men all shift in, and they lift it. And he couldn't do that when he was young, so he wanted to be able to do that, and he got really fit. It's kind of something that Snorkelblog might find interesting.
Yeah, I'm reading slowly through just his novels at the moment, but yeah, he was that guy combined, I think, everything that we're trying to idolize, and maybe all the pie. The pie was all there, basically, for Yukio Mishima. And, of course, he died in, I think, one of the most heroic and, not unfortunate, but it just seemed like a waste in some way. It was heroic, but almost stupid heroicism in the way he died. I'm not sure, Daniel, if you know about his life much, but he thought that he could convince the Japanese National Defense Force to basically understand that they're Japanese before they are a defense force for a country that didn't even exist in the same form prior to, after World War II. And he was trying to basically reawaken the understanding of Japanese-ness, and also martial culture, but also philosophical culture. And he was in his own right, he's a philosopher. And he played in a movie like 20 years or 10 years before that, where he was, at the end, he committed seppuku in the movie. And it turns out in real life, he committed seppuku, which is, you cut your belly and your guts spill out. And it was generally, ritual suicide when you've done something wrong in front of your superior or in the eyes of superior, and you don't want to bring shame on them. So either bring the shame on yourself. But he did that at the end. He died as a samurai in the 1970s.
We should do a stream on Mishima. You should watch for a Hollywood film. Excuse me. It's Life in 4 Chapters by Schrader. Paul Schrader. It's actually pretty decent.
I've not seen it.
But the testosterone, just quickly, I think if we are able, if our scientists and boffins are able to sort this out, a lot of stuff will just correct it. You'll have healthy men.
Right. But how do we get
women?
How do we get to the point, though, where testosterone is something that people actually want to bring back into the system? It seems like siphoning testosterone out of the system for various ends seems to be what is the aim of the system at the moment. So, like, this is important. I think you're absolutely right that if we had control of the system, we could do that. But we don't. And I think that there's a lot of reasons we don't, and none of us know all the reasons, right? By the way, Mirth, it's a pleasure to meet you.
You too. Sorry, as I say, I'm sorry I'm late. Sort of joining like 2 hours into the stream, so forgive me for that. But
Yeah, well, I've heard a little bit about you through Daniel, and I think I've heard a couple of other people talk about you. I'm not as active in all of these scenes, so I'm kind of discovering everyone's names just in the last several months, but it's definitely a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you too as well. You know, there's so much to say. You obviously, you
I
can't.
wouldn't mind more testosterone. It
Uh,
might help. Never mind. Go on.
it's yeah. Well, I think the regime, the sort of the talk we've seen, where we're at now is where they don't want people eating meat. Although actually a lot of meat is full of growth hormones and horrible stuff anyway. But they don't want particular Western men being a kind of what's the right word? A kind of, if you like, yin and yang, a kind of blending of sort of masculinity and with the intellectual side, a bit like a real samurai. A lot of the samurai, unfortunately, were just petty warlords, really. But nonetheless, that was what the ethos was. They don't want that. They want you in the pod. They want you being compliant, getting fully vaccinated. You know, not standing up for yourself. All the rest of it.
Snorkel's eager to get vaccinated.
Oh,
No,
man,
I forgot that we can't talk about that.
Oh yeah,
Sorry,
don't talk about
Susan.
that. Yeah,
Shut down.
I'm super excited about that. I was listening to actually, what's his name, Max Egan. I don't know what you guys think about Max Egan.
I know the guy.
Talking
Yeah.
He was talking, I think his latest stream that he did out of Mexico, and it just got me thinking because I saw some. I'm not going to say the word. So I'm not going to say the trigger word, but it's 80% of Japan has taken both updates, and I think 40% has taken the third. And of course, they're working as hard as they can to up all the numbers. And I had a salesperson come by, saleswoman. Dear God, I've got a new rule. If anyone comes to my house with a mask on, I'm not going to talk with them. I just made that up today, but I haven't really worked on that. Like until now, people have come with their masks on and they've tried to talk with me for various reasons. And there's a lot of sales people, both men and women, that come by here in Japan.
It's horrible, isn't it?
It is insane, man. And this woman, she basically admitted all sorts of stuff. She's like, because she basically looks around for empty land or people who have rundown houses so that they can basically buy it up. Her firm can buy it up and then put up an apartment. And it's a horrible firm. And she is like, yeah, this is a horrible firm, but I'm working at it. And what else am I going to do? She's like, you got to be careful for these people that walk around your houses and kind of meet you for the first time, because they don't. It's not the first time they've come to your house. They pretend it's the first time, but usually they've managed to see that no one's home before, and they walk around and they take notes about your property, etc. And then when they come to meet you and ring the doorbell and you actually come out, they'll pretend it's their first time there, and they'll be like, oh, you've got such a lovely house, etc. And she was telling me all this stuff, and I was wondering how many times she's been to my house. Of course, before that, I've got no idea. But in the course of it, she's like, I said, I really do want to go back to Canada, but it's complicated. She's, why is that? And I said, well, we've got a mortgage. And she's like, oh yeah, mortgages are tough. I'm like, yeah, they're like, it's literally, as Owen Benjamin says, it's a death grip, and other people say, right? But there's also the fact that if I had to go back, the laws are always changing about vaccination, or sorry, not updating. Sorry, about updating. And she's like, oh, but didn't you get your thing in the mail? Meaning the thing in the mail says that it's now your time to go to the office and get your update. And I was like, yes, I got it, but I never did it. She's like, you didn't? She's like, why is that? And I was like, well, I mean, why? And then she's like, yeah, it's true. Why? And just people just kind of go along with it. And it's, I mean, I'm against it, roughly 100%. And even then it's like, if I want to go back and see my father before he dies, what are my options at the moment, right?
You talk to a lot of people, they got it because of the flights, because I think they've dropped it now, because if you wanted to get on any aeroplane, basically you had to have proof of the old Fauci or the needle.
Yeah.
Right. Isn't it amazing that on the one of the world's most popular sort of websites that we can't talk about this issue? It's fine, guys, but you can't talk about it. This is where we're at now. We have to sort of talk in these cryptic ways, and yeah, the regime does this. They deliberately keep these things vague so people will trip up.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. That might be a good question to ask if I have another salesman come by the house. Be like, okay, so how many updates have you had? And if I find a 0, I think I'll talk. I think that basically protects me from any future purchases for a while. So,
Do you find are you fluent in Japanese, Snorkel?
well, describe fluency, right? I mean, can I talk about philosophy? No, I can't. Can I get by daily? Yes, I can. Can I talk about technical matters? It depends on the technical matter. So I would say fluent to a degree. But
I just
I could
wonder,
not do philosophy. Yeah.
do you find that Japanese is the term gaijin or gaijin? Do they treat
Yep.
you differently? I mean, even if
Yep.
you can speak the language.
Of course, yes, they do. Yeah.
But I just got a feeling that sort of Japanese, maybe when they're all together, they might be a bit more kind of open about this. Like, yeah, we know about a lot of things. We know about this subject, but we wouldn't talk about it at work.
Well, that's
Perhaps.
an interesting question. I've found that Japanese are a little bit more open, actually, to foreigners in some ways, and that's because there's kind of this. There's a whole bunch of unwritten rules that Japanese have, and one thing is really nice. If you can know a Japanese person for years, and you'll never know their political orientation. It's both good and bad because it does just prove that they go along with whatever the show is saying, and they don't think about it. And it's just flow with the flow, go with the flow. They don't want to stick out. They want to be a leaf on the what is it, leaf on the stream or whatever. But at the same time, you don't have the butting of the heads issue, and you don't have people shouting. You don't like it's nice. Now it's spilling over a little bit into the cities where people are more bug sort of people live, and because of that they're they turn on the TV. It's the first thing they do, and everyone's just really worried about the latest thing. But it's a lot less. In fact, maybe look back at what the 1990s were like, where you didn't really talk about the political thing, and it was also even among Europeans, it was a thing that was one of those. You don't talk about politics. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about what was the other thing? What was the other thing? Age or money? I can't remember. But it's like 3 things that you don't really talk about. And later on, if you want to open up about it, you can. But because I am a gaijin, what I've noticed is that Japanese will be more open to talk about certain things. One, because they want to know what gaijin think about Japan. That's something that a lot of them really want to know. And so I try to be as open as I can, as honest as I can. And of course, again, I can't go deep philosophy. I can't go down some deep philosophical route. I don't have the language for it. And even if I did, I'm not sure the opening for that may take years. I don't know. But one thing I've noticed again is they'll be open to talk about immigration very easily. They'll be open to talk about certain political and historical events, whether or not they're I have the wrong or right interpretation of them. They're very willing to go that route with a gaijin, because it's I think that we don't. One, I don't know the same people. There's like, for instance, I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat to getting them fired. I'm not a threat for any of the people that they hang around with. I am, because I'm a quote unquote other. It's very easy to just interact with me about things that perhaps for them actually don't even matter. And this is something I've wondered about, because they don't talk about it amongst themselves so much. It could be something that it's just flippant for them. They don't care about it. But I have no idea. I've not really sussed that out. I've been here for 10 years or 11 years and still not figured that out. So.
What does the herbivore phenomenon play into your thinking of the circumstance?
Herbivore?
Isn't there this herbivore phenomenon in Japan? These guys who are just kind of like marginalized to the point where they don't have women, never going to have women, don't even try. They're just sort of these nerds.
Oh, the guys, like hermit guys, they retreat basically into their apartments and they just live off of ramen and porn, like that.
Yeah, I think there was. I'm surprised you haven't heard of this term, herbivores.
Yeah, I haven't. I interact basically with hippies at the moment, so maybe I do. Yeah, they're all hippies.
You're a man after my own heart. I'm always making a thing of how that's a misunderstood phenomenon.
Well, I didn't pursue the hippiness, and I'm not a hippie myself, but basically everyone, all of the people that are the core families that are part of this free school that my daughter belongs to, the core of which is a farm, are all hippies. And so I'm learning to jive with hippies, and I'm liking it because things just flow. And because they just flow, there's so many ideas that are just going every which way, but they really
Well,
care about.
that's
Yeah.
good, and it does connect to one of the essences of what I explained that hippies were about was a connection to organic being in the world,
Right. Right.
and being in what Heidegger calls Mitsein, being amidst your people. This was in the 60s as opposed to being sent to Vietnam to die. You actually might want to live instead, right? Even though you had a weenie, and so this was a profound white expression of postmodern correction to the traditional and modernist expectations of what, quote, masculinity, what was required of masculinity, which was being exploited because, as a man, yes, you should be expected to man up and defend the borders when the borders are infringed upon. But this was not the case in Vietnam and the draft. On the contrary, we were being required to go and die on the other side of the world to kill people who were really ethno-nationalists that we should have been able to relate to and trade with. So this was an exploitation of the tradition of war and outmoded aspects of masculinity. And so, the hippies were a correction for that on the basic levels of the hierarchy of motives. It was not articulated, not even by the hippies, what this was about. This was, it remains one of the most important things for our people to this day to get right is this assigning of intrinsic value to white men, that we are not merely something to be sent into war to die if there's not a clear and imminent danger and not a valid reason to fight. Of course, again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be masculine and fight if our people and borders are being violated, which they are now. But so it's not a pacifist thing, but it is a connection with what Heidegger called Dasein, being, their being, and Mitsein, being amidst our people. And this was in conflict with. It was incommensurate with what the feminists were about, who were in pursuit of the top of the hierarchy, and that all becomes interesting. It all became buried with what the kosher folks did with their media, saying that, the hippies are all about civil rights for black people and about drugs and free love, which was, of course, nonsense. That wasn't what it was about. That was Herbert Marcuse and the Frankfurt School affectation imposed on. Because if you have free love, if you've got men from everywhere pursuing your women, this is not being. This is a state of acute anxiety for men when you don't have borders and bounds. So, yeah. So I just wanted to say that hippies are actually manifesting something very important. I'm not saying that they were all very good and that they were completely inarticulate of it, but it was an important thing, and I get very annoyed. In my earlier in the show, or yesterday, I was talking about how this is one of the things that irritated me about Lana Lochthoff when she had on this McGowan guy who was talking about his conspiracy theory that the hippies were a product of the CIA to discourage people from the anti-war movement because they would just turn them off so much. It was a totally ridiculous theory. But the thing is that the kosher folks don't want us to understand the profundity. This was like a manifestation of Heidegger's concern, of the postmodern concern, of how what we're a turn that we're supposed to be taking in the interests of our people, and it's not that you stay there. It's a part of the process. You have to learn skills and social norms. You don't, if drugs are a little part of it, getting in contact with that organic synthesis, yeah, maybe, but it's not everything in what becomes what should be a balance and process thing of socialization towards self-actualization in turn, not as the singular end of what we should be about. Because so self-actualization, if it's not serving our people overall and the general good, it becomes destructive, and its pursuit, absence the fundaments of socialization, being, and sacrament and routine, becomes unstable, and particularly for men, it's not as granted, and so they become desperate, and in the desperation for self-actualization, they overcompensate into a reflexive effect of aberration. They have all sorts of these sociopaths, and even if they are relatively self-satisfied and not, the most directly heinous kind, they're still disrupting the social order for their selfish focus, and this is a part of our problem. So what I'm saying is that I'm glad that you're connecting with hippies, and hopefully they'll become more articulate of what this movement was supposed to be about to begin with.
Well, I got two things just to add to that. So the hippie, okay, fine. At the center of this whole thing is a school and a farm. So obviously, if there's a school at the center of it, you can have families. But what I get from these hippies that are involved in the larger hippie culture, and they really network. They go network to learn how to grow better onions in various types of soils, and how to weave and how to do basket making and firing clay and all this. Like this is what they do, but they're all family focused, like super family focused. Fortunately, only one couple that are part of this don't have kids. All the other do have kids, and the families are growing. My family being the oldest of all of them. So there's a lot of children, and most of the families, even though kind of more normie ones that are involved, are not interested in sending their children to school in the same way, because they understand that they don't want their child sat behind a bit of cloth and then worried about everything that could be sticky and disgusting. So the hippies they're farmers, they're builders. They don't have the best plans for everything all the time. In fact, I'm a normal guy that isn't necessarily a planner, but I end up being the guy that's making the plans so that whatever they're building doesn't fall apart. But yeah, they're visionaries. They want to go learn how to fire clay, and then they want to use the dishes. People are retreating. I shouldn't say retreating, but they got places in the mountain. They're living outside. But they're pursuing life in a philosophically nature-based way, and that's really cool. The second thing I wanted to say is that I think.
Well, let me just comment on that. That
That
makes perfect sense, because they were again, they would not be the best planners and organists, because their emphasis is on organic synthesis of being, not analysis and that sort of thing, and adherence to the rigidity of modernist protocol. So yeah, that would make sense that they would not be good at some of the things, the technological things that you describe them as lacking.
Well, which I don't mind. I'm actually one thing that I've really appreciated is because they're all ideas people. They got this idea, they try to push it through, and it doesn't work, and so they're like, Nathan, how can we get this done? And I'm like, I'm not the maths guy, and I'm not, but I end up being the guy that's the maths guy, and whatever simple project is that we do, and that ends up working out, they're like, wow, we never would have thought about that. And so I'm actually. I've never had like this vision of myself as the guy that can just get things done, because I've always worked with people that are better planners or better builders than myself, and so I'm actually kind of learning how to be the guy that people can depend on, which is something brand new for me. And I think
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
about becoming a teacher isn't it? You learn more from teaching than you do from being a student.
Well, exactly. The other thing, by the way, there was a comment up above, and I think it was it from? It wasn't from Mirth. It was from. I just called him Mirth. I think that's cool. I now know a guy who it was Glib. There's a gentleman by the name of Glib. I think he was saying it was hikikomori instead of a herbivore. But I don't know if that's a term you're looking for. So hikikomori means a person who's hiki means to pull, and komori is like, well, I guess you put the two words together and you get a person that pulls himself inside and they don't go outside and they don't want to interact with real people. And that's been a thing that's gone on for some decades in Japan. I don't know.
Herbivore might just be the English term. Or
okay. Well, yeah. If that's what it describes, if hikikomori describes herbivore, then yeah, that's what it is.
I just want to comment quickly on what Thormit Un said. Weird scenes inside the canyon by Laurel Canyon by McGowan is worth reading regarding hippie culture. It's entertaining, but it's vastly misleading, as I was saying before. He is distracting. He's doing a service to the kosher folks who want to distract from this profound motive for being for white men, for intrinsic valuation of white men, which is what they were manifesting, as opposed to being sent to Vietnam. Now, what McGowan was saying is that it was all a CIA plot to, because the hippies were so disgusting that they were turning off the normal anti-war movement, and there was nothing organic about it because what else? There's nothing organic about it, and these guys were just. What else did he say? Well, anyway, nothing. Let's see. Let's just connect there. Nothing organic about it, as if there's nothing organic about not wanting to be sent to Vietnam, not wanting to be drafted, to have to go to Vietnam to die, which 56,000 American boys did, is not an organic motive. Trust me, it's an organic motive. This is not AstroTurf. But that's what McGowan is trying to say, because there's clear evidence of hypnosis going on, giving him the suggestion to write this book that way, because
right.
he takes the frame from the movie Gimme Shelter, the stabbing at Altamont of the black guy by the Hells Angels, and he points to there's no evidence of a reason to kill this black guy, is there? And you can see the Meredith, whatever his name is, something, the black guy holding a gun, which he was an imminent danger, and the Hells Angels killed him and were in fact acquitted. But he's saying there's no evidence, just like somebody under hypnosis will ignore something obvious. Repeat to me 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and by the way, don't say 3. And then the person after the hypnosis will say, 1, 2, 4. This is evidence, and not just that, but other evidences that McGowan was hypnotized to propose this absurd conspiracy theory. I have a post on that. But the point is, whatever the case might be, he's distracting from something profoundly important for white people, and trying to say that all the 60s was all bullshit, all jive. It wasn't. And a lot of people are going along with that. Academic agent is saying the same thing. It was well, bullshit. No, it wasn't. And Edward Dutton had had this lady on who was very, very, very down on the hippies. She's saying, like, with regard to children, she said, well, they worship their children as if they're these pure animals, like the what's the French guy who had the Rousseau, whatever, and then she goes on to explain how wild and loose the hippie commune that she lived in was. She's a Canadian lady who now lives in Finland, I think, and she was talking to Edward Dutton, and oh yeah, my father, he was having sex with all these women and everything, and our guru was Fritz Perls. And I'm like, yeah, well, this is the problem with their being ineloquent or inarticulate. They could go off the rails and be susceptible to Herbert Marcuse and Fritz Perls, who was, of course, a kosher guy and very much about individualism.
Wouldn't you say though, like, so by the way, I agree that that's probably all right. I think that Tor Matuns, of course, he brought this up. He said it's a CIA co-op. Does he mean that? No, I don't think he means that as an entire hippie movement, but in terms of like certain icons among the hippies that then normies then associate with hippies, and that maybe some hippies who are predisposed to just kind of, when they get into something, they're not getting into it for like more natural, more good purposes, but they just kind of go with the flow off to some weird way. Just like right now, if we were to talk about, and I had never really thought about it this way until I'd come on your stream a couple of weeks ago, where you talked about postmodernism. When I hear postmodernism, I don't hear what you talk about. I hear I hear Frankfurt School. I hear,
you hear the red. You're familiar with the red cape because that's all you're going to hear.
Exactly.
So they don't want European peoples to understand. Right. They don't want European peoples to understand what postmodernity was supposed to be doing. Postmodernity was supposed to be a management of our people from both the ravages of modernity, the impervious universalistic ravages running roughshod over our people, with the notion that only what is new is good, and traditional things and inherited forms are, just passé to be experimented upon. So there was that idea. On the other hand, also with the idea that tradition was not necessarily well grounded in our interests either. So basically what it's supposed to do is take the best of modernity and the best of tradition and inherited forms and manage those two things in postmodernity so that we could sustain ourselves, our homeostasis. One of the things that you are able to do when you don't look upon modernity as necessarily good and everything new as necessarily good is you can look upon a tradition and participate without the pangs of self-loathing for the appearance of conformity, because you're above it. That okay, it's tradition, but this one is facilitative of our people. By the same token, you can leave it behind. If you could say that this is an affectation. It's not really conducive to maintaining our inherited forms. Now, you had mentioned the neo-reactionaries and the Dark Enlightenment, which are exactly just another op to distract from how postmodernity is supposed to function. Mencius Mollberg stuff, and it was conceived, and Kumiko put me onto this, my Japanese colleague, that this was conceived, as I articulate a bit further, to operate against STEM types who are both not familiar with the humanities and what, like I say, postmodernity is supposed to be doing in our interests as European people, and overly prone to cling on desperately to the good things about modernity because they, as scientists and so on, did well for themselves and did well of science anyway by modernity. So they don't want to hear modernity criticized. And also, just the kind of traditional nonsense that someone like Mollberg will get into in order to, basically distract from how it is that postmodernity is supposed to serve to protect our inherited forms as European peoples.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. By the way, I think Claire Caw has a question. She says, "Does anyone in the chat get Heidegger?" To which Mirth was like, "Do you get Heidegger?" I have not read him, man. I wish that I could come to this chat prepared with Heidegger, but I have not, and so I'm getting him from you and some other people. So,
well, don't worry about it. You know, the key is a goodwill toward our people. You know, I don't I don't know everything, and I don't expect other people to know everything. And you know, basically, I have confidence in your ability and Mirth's ability, and I'm looking. I'm hoping that you'll be able to help us get some of these more popular sites like Red Eyes, like Kevin McDonald, to facilitate the DNA Nations project, the unionization and coordination, so that we can defend ourselves against the onslaught that's going on against us and against the Japanese too. You know, I have nothing against. You know, I certainly I'm full on board with Japan defending their ethno state, and I'm really glad to have you participating because I think they're you know, a natural ally, ethno national ally against this thing that Putin's doing now.
yeah. Well, geez, you know what? There's some like depths that I'll never be able to reach into any of these conversations, just because I haven't read as much as you. But there's another thing, like, I don't have
No,
any connection.
you know, I'm much older than you too. It's not. I wouldn't say that. There, you will reach into the depths.
Well, I'm slowly. I mean, actually, by the way, Tormitunes, his channel, he's doing a lot of audiobooks of good stuff that's just well worth reading. And I followed his channel for probably only about maybe 6 months now. But through his channel, I'm getting the audiobook stuff whilst I'm doing construction. I'm listening to his audiobook readings, which is incredibly helpful. So I'm hoping to catch up on certain
I didn't know
things.
that he was a friend of yours. That's great.
Yep, he's been on my channel, streamed. I think it's just twice, and we chat off and on, not streaming as well. And very very good guy.
Where's it coming? Where's it coming from?
He's somewhere in the States, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Physically, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you should check out his channel. It's on Odyssey. I'll send a link to it for anyone that's in the chat because he has several channels there, really good readings, as well as while he's reading, he adds in his little commentary, and you can tell that he is obviously also an evolving mind, where he's every 2 weeks when we chat or whatever, it's the same man, but he's evolving perhaps faster than most men do.
Wow.
But
I want to come back to the CIA and the hippies though.
Yeah.
I can believe they are known to have been part of the LSD experimentation.
Yes.
In Palo Alto. Okay, I'll grant you that, but then that certainly went beyond their control after that. You know, it became something that you know, was being processed by Owsley and the Hells Angels and so on, and there was you know, the hippie movement was not confined to 1 square mile in San Francisco and 1 square mile in Soho, like academic agent tries to say. Like I said, this it's important for them that the hippies not be appreciated for who, and you know who I'm talking about when I say them, that the hippies not be appreciated for who they are. The right wingers too, you can say, are complicit, but which figures would be misleading the public by, you know, posing as hippies. I don't see that so much as the fact that the hippies were almost criminally inarticulate. You know, John Lennon didn't know. Tried to say, "Oh, it's all about picking up girls." They didn't know. Even the guys themselves didn't know. That doesn't mean that what they were manifesting wasn't important.
Yeah.
Like I said, just like it's up to you to engineer their ideas. Well, it's up to me to articulate what philosophically they were about, because nobody was doing it. You know, I put it together. I could see, you know, through hints here and there. You look at the rock opera Hair, and the talk, My Conviction, and what's the other one? Walking in Space, provide clues that this is a male thing. It's the hippie movement is about being for males, and not just being, but being amidst your people. Being would be what Heidegger calls Dasein, their being. It's an anti-Cartesian movement back into the relative concerns in relation to your people, and Mitdasein, even more deeply, being amidst your people. And that implies boundaries and not fighting if you're not going beyond your boundaries to fight just out of habit or tradition, like that. So, well, I could elaborate, but another time.
What about that? We haven't heard from Mirth in a little while.
Yeah,
Mirth,
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
That's okay. The flow of conversation has been very interesting.
he muted himself after that.
Sorry, I'm doing a tech. The flow of conversation has been very interesting. Heidegger, I've only read a bit of him. I think is he asking what does it mean to be human? I think in a way, but I don't really. I'm not going to pretend like I understand Heidegger. DanielS explained the good stuff to me, but that's really about it. But yeah, he's certainly a very interesting bloke. And did he live
a really good way to understand Heidegger? He could make general sense of him always is this. You place him into Aristotle's framework, because that's what he's doing. Same framework that Giambattista Vico took in response to Descartes was neo-Aristotelian. That is to say, that he's played, as opposed to placing pure principles as the philosophical pursuit that should be. The central concern was what Aristotle called praxis. That is to say, our group and its relative interests were to be re-centralized as the concern. This is the postmodern turn. It's neo-Aristotelianism, and this is what Heidegger was doing when he said, when he talks about Dasein, he's calling back from their being, calling back from the estrangement of Cartesianism, of Cartesian detachment, and Mitdasein, being amidst your people. So he's calling back this European susceptibility to be called away and distracted in these pure principles back into a relative concern of our people. And that Aristotle has some important things to say about praxis. That is that this is not epistemological. You can't approach this the way you do science, because people are agentive and interactive, and they have reflexive effects of what they could do. They can learn and learn to learn. So all you can do to an extent to make sense and deal with these circumstances is engage in what Aristotle called phronesis, or practical judgment. And okay, so this is where Heidegger is taking us. He's re-centralizing praxis and taking us away from the Cartesian fallacy, which Heidegger is very concerned to do on the side of hermeneutics, to wrest us from what he calls mere facticity, the arbitrariness of the thrownness, as he calls it, into natural circumstance. We rest our human coherence, authenticity, and capacity for agency and warrant to the extent that we have it through the hermeneutic turn and circularity. And there he engages the other part of Aristotle's three-way framework, which is poiesis, the world of literature and the arts, and which have to be, they would be approached by what Snorkelblog was talking about in more intuitively, while the other facet, which is theoria, a pure theoria, which would follow from concerns of physics, would be facilitated by technology. It's a slight turn on Aristotle, but so this is why, and it would keep us rigid and detached from our natural and rightful concerns, a priority, which is, of our people. And that's why Heidegger will speak somewhat disparaging, in the question of technology, about technology of itself, and how the scientific and modernity, of course, got caught up in this pursuit of pure theoria, when our correct philosophical concerns ought to have been firstly calibrated by the interests of our people, our relative concerns. That's not to say, and this is where our people have been red-caped in this, characterology of the left. That's not to say that we are not concerned with truth, verification, nature, principles, but these things are not what we go by. We don't go around being objective if we're normal. We go around, the default setting is the relative interests of our people and our boundaries. Nevertheless, we also require the feedback to the kind of objective truth inquiries, of correspondence with natural rhythms. But these things are feedback. This is not where we begin. These right wingers in reaction are taking that stance that, well, we're all about truth and nature and pure truth and facts and God and these leftists they're not dealing with, they're all about narrative. They're not dealing with reality. They're not arranging things philosophically correctly. Thereby, they're being distracted by the Gottfried perspective. Almost all of them are. So this is what Heidegger's doing. He's trying to re-centralize praxis as our worldview, and his students as well. And it's really important. That's the postmodern term.
Well, it certainly seems like there's no proper practice going on in the universities. That's been deliberately diddled with.
Absolutely not. That's very true. I want you to do anything but understand that, because
even just like a brief overlook of like society, it's basically like you just get a job, you keep your head down, and you keep the machine running. There's no and I don't know, like celebrate diversity or watch football or something. I don't like football, but there's no real kind of spiritual or care for your own group. I mean, all of this is being deliberately denied, and we can't explore it in the public arena.
Absolutely. I don't know if it connects well enough to that, but it does connect. That when Heidegger talks about thinking and maybe what you're talking about, the kind of transcendent, the spiritual, he talks in terms of poiesis and that third component of the Aristotelian perspective is talk about, and how poetry, he says, is more like thinking than science. And it's very profound, but it's also a clue that he is working with that Aristotelian framework. Snork asked me, how to understand Heidegger. This is how you could make sense of him through that effort to reconstruct the Aristotelian worldview.
Was he was around? He was alive during World War One before. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, was his thought was possibly influenced by this sort of technology, the poison gas, the tanks, the sort of trench warfare, the sort of
That would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? That would. I never really thought of
as
that.
a probably
That would
a
make a lot of
reaction
sense.
to
Wouldn't
that in
That
many
would make a lot of
ways.
sense. Well, yeah. Well, that would be the synchron. The absolutely that would be the culmination of modernity and the utter disillusionment that progress that we were not necessarily going forward as Europeans, as you saw with World War One, and that's frequently cited as the end of modernity. So yeah, and your description of it is keen as ever. I'm always impressed by your thoughts.
Gentlemen, if I may go grab another cup of coffee.
Okay,
I'll
I
be right
love
back.
coffee. I love coffee. Get one for me too.
Coffee break in the trim. Because I think, I mean, I can't remember the Napoleonic War took a lot of people, but that World War One was really, it was the culmination of this sort of Euroman sort of
And
strength.
technology outstripping human judgment.
Yeah. But no one, I think the bloody Germans, proficient as ever, they came, didn't they? I think they just arrived at the wrong time, so they had enough troops. I think were they like a week or a few days later, it might not have happened if I remember correctly.
Oh wow, that war just makes me so sad. It's just like it's so. Think of it. It just gutted our genome. How horrible. How horrible.
I dislike saying it. It's a bit, you kind of almost get into eugenics, but it is dysgenic. You do lose the best of your men. It's
I think for the most part, yeah. I mean, an argument could be made that there's something eugenic about people who don't get snookered into going to foolish wars. Perhaps I don't know, but
well, I mean that unfortunately wasn't the case due to conscription and the propaganda about people who didn't bother into the fray.
You have a good point there. Yeah, definitely.
It was a grindhouse, horrific. It's a lot of people. Something a lot of the right wingers get right. I mean, Morgoth talks about World War One and Spenglerism in many ways, and he's.
I'm not big on Spengler, but well, first of all, he's part kosher, and second of all, I know this thing about cycles. I don't. Yeah, so I don't trust him.
Yeah, well, he's a fascinating guy. I don't know if I agree whether it's he had the analogy of the seasons, didn't he?
Well, I don't go with these repeating cycles of civilization thing. I never like that kind of argument. But
yeah,
he has some intelligent insights, no doubt. But there's just so much important to be said. More to be said about Heidegger and the postmodern turn, and the liberation from mere facticity is an idea that is extremely important, and of course it's been abused by these academics to where beyond all reason, to where it turns, our people are being turned off from vital concepts and chasing the red cape, and with it the underlying concept that we need. And I've experienced the reactionary boomerism of like a GW and even Bowery to these ideas. And even Kevin MacDonald, who said to me, "Oh no, hermeneutics, it's only anti-science." They're only seeing the abuse of these concepts through kosher auspices, and it's very frustrating because that's not what it's supposed to be. And furthermore, these were concepts that were European. Heidegger got this from Dilthey, who I think got this probably from some German monks or something. And these ideas, similar ideas were, of course, circulating among others and our other philosophical forebears. But these are vitally important concepts that our people have, and they're not getting it because they're all of them, run down the line. Rams, Paul, all the popular ones, set into this framework of arguing against the left and this characterology of where the red capes are to be chased as the enemy.
It also bothers me how
Sorry,
they think like. Sorry,
No, you go ahead.
about how it's the left, but the nationalist right or the dissident right is perfect, and we're going to sort everything out. So when we really don't have much of a sort of philosophical grounding or practice, but really, and that's a problem as well. It's not like we are like a monolith ready to sort of take over and sort things out. We're a bit of a shambles, really.
Yeah, I mean
we're a bit of shambles because they mean it to be so. That we are going to stay disorganized, particularly as we remain identifying as right wing, dissident right, alternative right, right wing, anything. We're going to be inherently unstable because that lacks the corrective element of left organization of unionization, which structures social accountability, and then with that, then correctivity, and thus homeostasis, and thus autonomy, and thus our sovereignty. And they know this, and that's why they are. That's what they're doing to our people. They've always referred to anybody who defends what was as right wing, because they know that underlying it is this objectivist, this objectivism, which is makes short shrift of social accountability. It seeks for pure warrant either beyond nature or within nature, and as opposed to the warrant of our group union, of our union as a people, and of course they don't want us to understand this. Plato was the one who first said that the way to deal with the right makes right, the might makes right of the elitist oppressors of us, was to group up, and that's how we become stronger than them. We become stronger than the despot, but being through numbers.
What do you guys reckon, though? I don't think we're ever going to come to some proper definition of postmodernism, proper definition of leftism, proper definition of liberalism. We're never going to get people to really rally under the banners the way that we want to. So I don't know.
I feel that I've already defined these things personally, but I don't know that it matters that much if they rally under those banners. But we have to have enough people understand how those terms are being used to misdirect our people. But we do need them to understand the simple concept of unionization. If they're phobic to the term left, which I totally understand, I was, the left meant all these horrible things. They don't have to use it. That's not the important thing. They just have to understand. They just have to participate in the underlying concepts of coalition building, unionization, coalition building, social advocacy. And because, again, coming back to the postmodern Aristotle, he maintained, and I believe correctly so, that politics was of the first order philosophically, because if our politics are out of whack, all else is for naught. And that's the case. And our politics requires, getting this sense of this unionization of our people under the way through the DNA nations and coalitions thereof. Yeah, okay. That's so. we can simplify it and not necessarily put it in terms that people have been trained to react to. Because I totally understand people being put off by the term left because, I certainly was, and it took Metzger and David Lane and their criticisms of the right for me to warm up to the idea of actually cultivating a definition of left ethno-nationalism, because and the reason why I do it, I maintain it, is because it turns off the kind of people that should be turned off, who are doing things which are counterproductive. Like and so that's why I'm okay with it. But if what you're saying is true, that some people are not going to rally under it, well then use whatever term works to get them to fit in as much as possible, or as many as possible, with the underlying concept.
I might just simplify it this way. Those people that can recognize evil, that's all that I really sort of care about within our general, the greater white population. And I think that maybe in some ways that group of people is dwindling, but at the same time, I think that it's at the core. If you get to this idea where everyone,
well, I think that is a bit too simple.
It is simple, but at the same time, I think that there's a real truth. So you can get these people to identify as Republicans or identify as Democrats or as conservatives or whatever, but if they can look at things that we completely agree with and say that's good, and they can look at things that we hate, we know is abhorrent, it's going to destroy us, and they could say that's evil. I think there's a lot that we can latch on to. But if we try to,
if that works for people, okay. But it's not that won't be that won't be my line. But if you find that brings people on board,
but the regular normie, I mean,
then fine.
I don't expect the regular normie, whether they're high IQ or low IQ, to really go off on the same tangents that all of us go on. And try to use the same terms. I mean, it's just.
I'm talking to you now. I'm not talking to the regular normie. For the regular normie, I can say, well,
graduated normie.
Wasn't your father a part of a union? Well, this is a union of not of an industry that might go obsolete, but a union of our people, which will be will always be concerned with, right?
I started a union,
and so. I think that they can understand that. And look, we're just trying to protect ourselves against elitist oppression. And we're willing to work with anybody who can be reasonable and is not looking to be supremacist and exploitative and looking to murder other people, is caring of our human and pervasive ecology. So we could build coalitions like that with other kinds of Europeans, with non-Europeans, with Japanese, hopefully, because you have it's a great left ethno-nationalism there in Japan to begin with. But again, you don't have to use the term left because it's been so deliberately poisoned by the YKW. This is what I'm saying.
Who, by the way, if you're everyone listening.
So, but the underlying concept, they want you to say, oh, we're right wing or we're neither left nor right, because that confuses the underlying concept of what the left does and what the left is about. Now, our left is not their left. Our left is talking about a unionization of our people. Our left does not say that you can't have private property and wealth development and private and free enterprise, within reason, of course. So there would be, a different. We're not Marxists. We're not internationalist leftists, and obviously we're not Frankfurt School leftists who are attacking our borders and boundaries. But notice, people do have to understand this to an extent, because notice that they're confused. That you look at the political cesspool, And from sentence to sentence, they'll be saying leftists and liberals and leftists and liberals, when in fact this is an oxymoron. It's a complete contradiction, because the left is the opposite of liberalism. The left is about a union. You're in the union or you're not. Liberalism is about not being constrained by borders, wanting to open borders and boundaries. So these things are opposites, but the internationalist left, the Frankfurt School left, will be intent upon opening our borders and boundaries. So to us, yes, this is liberalization, a pernicious liberalization of our borders and boundaries. But at least our our exponents have to have some understanding of this, of the games that are being played against us. And, this Gottfried game that's come into that came into the fore with the 2008 crisis, when he realized, and David Horowitz realized, that hey, this Frankfurt School stuff, it's beginning to intersect with our interests as kosher folks, because we're looked upon as white too. And also there's some blowback from our neocons. We're being criticized for being a part of that. And also there's blowback from the Austrian school stuff with Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke and the Federal Reserve, and this boom and bust cycle that's come full cycle, and now our kosher folks have hegemony in 7 to 9 niches. And what we don't want is people having unionizing and organizing in the traditional way of taking on our elitist hegemony. So we're going to make the left into the enemy, right? And we are going to enlist those who are going to adopt the right-wing identity of objectivism, as in, well, that's just the way it is. Or just, I'm Richard Spencer. I'm just so beautiful and on top, because that's, the objective fact of the matter. And Paul Gottfried told me so. And so they'll work with this kind who are short on accountability and hand them these scripts that, the left is the enemy. This characterology of the left is our problem, and they red cape it and have us chase after it and chase away the underlying concept of the left, which is unionization, coalition building, social organization, and social advocacy. And it's mere forms that they've all exaggerated and made ridiculous and repulsed us to the point where they got a Supreme Court. They put up a Supreme Court justice who's saying she can't define what a woman is.
Right.
She actually said, what was it? I'm not a biologist or something. So the caveat was that she did actually know it is biological. It isn't, just a category of the mind, as Elijah Jones was saying.
Race is a category of the mind, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like it's incessant concentration on licensing. So you can't define things because you're not a biologist. You can't have an opinion on this because you don't have the right credentials. Today I was coming out of the grocery store, and there was a woman who was advertising horse riding lessons, and I thought my daughter might be interested, so I chatted with her about horse riding lessons. And it turns out that if you want to ride a horse by yourself, you need a license. Here in Japan, there are actually 5 levels of license to ride a horse, and that just blew me back. Like, why would you need such a thing? But I mean, we're at that point where you can actually use that as some sort of excuse. Well, I don't have the proper license for that, so I cannot give my opinion on that. And other people be like, well, that's fair enough, because I mean, let's face it, the thing I brought up with the university thing about an hour ago was that everyone goes to university, and so because everyone goes, there is a degree for everything. There's a degree for basket weaving at university. There's a degree for feminist dance theory, which of course the Sargon type of people bring up all the time. There's degrees for that, and because of that, you can't have just normal opinions on a whole bunch of things without people being like, well, what qualifications do you have for that? So her excuse is ridiculous, but at the same time, it makes sense for a normal person who's brought up in this environment where everyone can get a university degree, not just the top of the class, not just the people that really want to pursue truth, everyone. And it's, it's facilitated by the fact that, well, I mean, I don't know, which started first? Was it the company requiring a university degree, or was it because everyone is going to university? Like, I don't know, but it's a negative feedback loop where everyone has to have it. And because of that, there's a million different qualifications out there, and it's working backwards. By the way, Spencer, I'm not sure if you've listened to him recently. He does talk a lot about coalition building. Now, I don't really know what I think about Spencer necessarily.
Well, I think that he's copying me lately. With he's trying to put his own version of what I'm doing. Because he's got to somehow rebuild his image. Him and his cohort there. What's his name?
Dutton, I believe.
The Apollonian guy. Not Dutton.
Oh,
the Apollonian guy. What's his name? Mark Brahman.
Mark Brahman.
Yeah, they were saying that Mark Brahman was saying that he's doing something similar as I'm doing in criticizing reactionary stance of the right, which is true, and saying, oh well, we don't, our people have to set forth plans to keep us from reacting. Well, I have a better way of understanding how it is by putting it in terms of homeostasis and correctivity. But because I have better philosophical mentors than Brahman and Spencer. But I think that they're the word is they're gonna sooner or later they're gonna have to try to assimilate what I'm saying. Spencer's been, of course, a snob and resistant to me for his part. I've known him since the days of VOR, like in 2010, 2011. But the problem for him and for all of these right wingers is that this platform is correct, and yet they still want to be the stars. So they don't want to. They don't necessarily want to let it come to the light. Certainly, Spencer hasn't wanted to. But I think that with the help of you guys, we'll get it out there because it is important. Spencer, of course, has some things very wrong. So does Mark Brahman, and yeah.
After that rant he had, where he was talking about, you had the one where he was shouting about, they see someone's face like me,
looking down at them. These afternoons.
I associate myself with that. I don't want to touch that with a rusty barge bowl.
Yeah, even if it was loaded up on coke, which it probably was, there's no excuse. It was insane.
And the video,
it's embarrassing. Oh God.
The video.
Gentlemen, I need to head out. By the way, my wife and my daughter are getting ready for bed.
Okay.
So next time you're free to do this, I'd love to join again. It's been a pleasure, Mirth. Sorry to just interrupt your flow, Mirth. Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you, and of course, Daniel, thank you very much for having me on again.
Thank you for coming forward, and let's try to set a time, in a week or so, and begin to think about you could help me to encourage people like McDonald and Red Eyes to get with this DNA Nations project.
They don't know me from Adam. I'm the least popular person on Millennial.
I know, but you're a voice of reason. You're a normal guy and obviously intelligent. So, in time, in quick enough time, you'll be of big help, I think.
Okay, well, I appreciate it, gentlemen. Again, have a good day, good night, whatever it is, and I'll see you next time.
All right, I'll send you an email, and we'll coordinate a time, hopefully with Per next time.
Okay, yeah, well, that'll be great. And of course, Tor, See you, man. If you stay on in the chat, guys, make sure you answer some of his questions. He's got some good ones. So, thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we interrupted what you were saying, Mirth.
Oh, no, I was just kind of prattling on. This is like the video of Spencer doing the karaoke to.
Oh, that with the Hitler salute with
I think. Yeah.
with what's his name, the gay guy.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it. Probably, yeah, if it's Spencer.
What was his name? The gay guy with the black boyfriend.
Milo, enough.
Yeah, Milo Yiannopoulos. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was doing karaoke with Milo.
State
It was
that.
that, and then yeah, and he has another unbecoming rant against Nick Fuentes in the telephone, telling him how his family could be house servants for him.
I don't even care if it's like an agent or something. Imagine being that much of an arsehole.
Yeah, it's really perfect. Yeah, perfect right-wing dupe to perfect pawn for the Gottfried framework. Now, who's the Lizard King? I can't imagine this being someone above board. But first, let me look at Thor Mitsun's questions, because I was asked to by Snork. Who are your philosophical mentors? So that's a too long a question to get into. Next time I'll answer that. I'll talk about that next time, Thor. My narrow understanding of third position is that it's fascism. Well, yeah, pretty much, but it's I'm against it because I see it as introducing a means to introduce right-wing elements, whether Mussolini, Hitler, or just natural fallacy, unnecessarily, when the unionization of our people, in other words, a kind of leftish concept, is what we should be doing. And however, our implementation of it doesn't mean communism or pure socialism. The social aspect is about our people, not so much an economic thing. Economically, we can have degrees of social social leverage and degrees of free enterprise, and certainly private property ownership, and also wealth development. I don't want us to be against these things. That's not my position as a quote left ethno-nationalist. But I don't trust third positionism. I will answer your questions about philosophical mentors next time. Let's check. Mark, do you mind if I check out who the Lizard King is? I'm sure it's going to be bad, but I have to check.
No, of course, go ahead.
Hello, Lizard King. So that was OV.
I think so. I recognise that.
That
That
cackle. Yeah.
Imagine being that bored that you come on someone's stream just to laugh.
Yeah, I don't know what is. I mean, well, I know his problem now because I'm not going to put up with him. But just get a life, man. Figure it out.
Have you spoken to Norman recently?
Not recently. The last time Norvin sent me a link to come on his stream about 3 weeks, a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I was set to go on. It's like, no problem. I like Norvin, basically, and I want to like him. And I go there, and there's OV with his swastika flag as ever behind him, and some Iranian guy also with a swastika flag behind him. How can I appear on a stream with these dudes? What's going to happen to me and the cause that I'd like to advocate if I'm associated with that stuff, if nothing else, even just the look of it.
That would be clipped, or that would be like the image on the article, like Daniel Shukhanovich, the next Adolf Hitler. It would be that dumb and that basic, the hit piece.
Yeah. So I mean, I wish that I mean, I know. I just wish that Norvin would not associate with this. For Tom, he wasn't. So I don't know. I'm sorry that he let it back in, but I'm not against Norvin. I just, I wish him to come out of that right-wing misdirection because he has a lot to offer. He's really intelligent. But I'm not gonna appear on his stream with people who are just out to, abuse me.
Yeah, of course. I'll have to listen to your chat with Snorkelblog. I'm a bit annoyed I joined late, but never mind.
Oh, it's okay. I think that now I'm getting a bit exhausted myself after now 4 hours. So let's work on coordinating a time that will work with Per. We've got to, he's a bit reticent, and we have to get him to commit to a time, because after all, he said that he wants to talk offline. So that's not a great commitment. He ought to be able to set aside a half hour sometime to talk offline. It's not even like, a risk. And then maybe we'll do a full-fledged stream with him, hopefully. He's really good.
Yeah, it'd be great to chat to him. If you want to talk offline, do you send an email beforehand, or do you have like an instant messaging?
I don't know how it works. I don't remember how it works exactly. All I know is that it does work because it did it with Per already. I put a stream link out, and at first he thought it couldn't be done, and then something had to be changed in the settings or something, which would allow him to do it. And then we were talking offline, and we did for a couple hours in the StreamYard box. I don't know if he asked me. I don't think that he asked me to do something. All the changes were made from his side, but it is possible. Unfortunately, I don't remember offhand how it's done. If Per comes on, he'll know how to explain that. I'm sure it's not very hard. I just don't remember offhand. What's now? Is next Saturday or Sunday going to be better for you? You might not know in advance, but.
I think it's Sunday that I'll be free. I think.
Okay, hopefully that would be good again for Snork, and hopefully this time we can get a hold of Per and have him nail down a particular time. He's a huge asset. He knows all about this stuff, and he's very familiar with my take on it, and likes it, and so I mean it'd be just a huge asset. And he said to me, no, don't worry, I'm very committed to this. There's no point, because they're trying to destroy us, and we've got to do something. And he's got a lovely wife and a young son now, so supreme motivation, with what's happening in Sweden and all. But I want to thank you very much, Mirth, and sorry that not as much of the conversation was engaged with you, but that will that will change in streams to come.
Okay, that's fine. I came late anyway, so it's fine.
Great. So I'll talk to you by email, and then hopefully next Sunday we'll have all three of us.
Lovely. Yeah. And, well, I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you very much, Mirth, and Thorman Uns. Thank you too. And we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.